Chapter 531, Arriving at Ice City. Sun Donging did not at all feel complacent because of some achievements. The live streaming was still going on, however, the frequency and length were much less compared to before. He went on live streaming once every 2-3 days. Even so, this group of fans said noisily that they were moved to tears. Many people thought that as for people like him who had made such achievements, normally they would choose to pursue their careers in the entertainment industry, such as making films. In that case, they would have no time to do live streaming. But Sun Donging was an exception. Though he had been among the 8 powerful trainees of Chinese New Voice and had issued an album, the sale volume of which was quite good, and also looked somewhat handsome, he still went on live streaming quite laboriously. From the perspective of the fans, their feelings could be summarized by a somewhat exaggerated sentence, which was, "With you by my side, who else should I look for?" However, since Sun Donging did like live streaming very much, he did not abandon it due to some achievements he had made. At 8 o'clock in the morning, Sun Donging had gotten up and packed everything to go. Dragging a suitcase, he called out loud from the living room, "Mom, Dad, I'm leaving." "Okay." Sun Donging's mother walked over, stared at him smilingly, and tidied up his messy clothing. "Meanwhile," she said, "don't make trouble for the boss if you go out to have fun this time. Moreover, be more considerate, generous, and active." "Well, I know." Sun Donging patted her forehead as he said, "I'm not a child anymore." At this time, Sun Ming walked out of the bedroom, stared at his eldest son, who was dressed handsomely, and said with a smile, "You are a child forever in the eyes of your parents. Have fun when you go out this time. You don't also need to worry about the boss's issues. Just don't cause them trouble." "Yes, Dad, Mom, I need to go now. It is already 8:10, and I'm late to start the live stream." Sun Donging walked out hurriedly. He went downstairs to start the live stream. After he went to the live streaming site, he saw there were already more than 500,000 people converging there. Moreover, the bullet screens swept past continuously. FK. Didn't he say he would live stream at 8 o'clock? This shameless liar. Why isn't the live stream on yet? Will he be here or not? If he does not live stream today, I will not be his fan anymore. Sun Donging saw what was going on, stopped just down the stairs of his residential quarter, and started live streaming in a hurry. Sorry, I am 10 minutes late. I was packing up a moment ago. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm wearing thick clothing. Of course, I will take a flight to Ice City soon, to play in the snow there and experience the coldness of the northern winter. This is also the first time I have gone to the northeast after growing up. Sun Donging smiled as he said, "Yo, thank you, elder brother San Pang, for gifting me 10 super rockets. Elder brother San Pang, you're awesome, brothers. Let me tell you, the king in this live streaming room, San Pang, is also a mysterious rich one, who is quite amazing. I saw elder brother San Pang's cars in his WeChat by accident last time. He has several sports cars that I've wanted to have for a while." Sun Donging had talked with this San Pang several times, who seemed to be 24 or 25 years old. He was pretty rich and spent quite a lot of money on the gaming broadcasters here. Having spent more than $2 million on the platform, he asked those amazing gaming broadcasters to be his game partners on usual days. If he was happy, he would gift many rockets to the broadcasters. He had visited Sun Donging's live streaming room, found it interesting, and sent Sun Donging some gifts. Moreover, since Sun Donging had played games often, as time went on, they got to know each other. On this platform, many people were San Pang's fans, who liked going shopping with him and enjoying the scene when the gifts floated all over the sky. At this moment, as San Pang heard that Sun Donging would head for Ice City, he typed, "You are going to Ice City? Let me give you a treat." Sun Donging asked curiously, "Do you come from Ice City, elder brother San Pang?" "Yes." Sun Donging smiled and said, "Holy shit, in that case, it should be me who sets the arrangement. I will be in Ice City this afternoon. After I settle down, I will invite you to have fun." Elder brother San Pang, what do you think? San Pang typed, "Since you'll be in my place, won't it be a slap in my face if I let you spend money?" Sun Donging laughed out loud and said, "Ha ha, ha ha, you're right, brother." He was live streaming on the street so addictively, in other people's eyes, he looked like a fool. However, Sun Donging did not mind it at all since he thought he was live streaming quite honestly. After he had been walking for dozens of minutes, he aimed his camera at the building of his company and said, "This is my father's company, my boss owns all the places here. By the way, as for the area of luxurious housing on the mountain, which I showed you some time ago, it is also the boss's property." San Pang stared at the scene in front of him and felt curious. Originally, he had planned to ask who his boss was. However, he sensed that Sun Donging would not tell him. Consequently, he asked indirectly, "How high is your boss's social status?" Based on the small amount of information such as the social status and the location of New Moon Bay, he thought that he could guess the identity of Sun Donging's boss. After all, this kind of rich tycoon was quite rare. "How high is his social status?" "I don't know either." Sun Donging smiled helplessly and said, "Anyway, it is surely very high. I remember that a subordinate of the boss got a deal done a few days ago and made a net profit of $5 billion. Puff. San Pang could not help typing a word, societal. It was simply societal to earn a net profit of $5 billion. It was amazing. Even if Sun Donging's boss deposited this money in the bank, ordinary people could live their entire lives with the relative interest generated. As Sun Donging walked to the front of the building, the security guard standing at the entrance, who knew him, nodded and said politely, "Master Sunday." "Yes." Sun Donging responded complacently and walked in confidently. He went to the airport directly from the back door as he said, "This is the boss's private airport. As for these 2 large-sized jets and 3 helicopters, the boss bought them recently. As the saying goes, seeing is believing." The scale of the airport was not large. However, several planes dazzled people's eyes. Those who knew about all the goods typed out the frightening price at once. As Sun Donging saw many people typing on the screen, "Brother Dong, you're awesome," he could not help laughing as he said, "It's not me but the boss who is rich, though my father does have some properties. Compared with those of the boss, well, it can't be comparable. I will sit here live streaming for a while and end the broadcast before boarding." Your question is who took first place on Chinese New Voice. Well, I can't tell you that, since we all signed non-disclosure agreements. However, the list of the 8 powerful trainees that circulated on the internet is true. Well, I am one of them. I'm not bragging. Sun Donging started bragging and showing off. On the opposite side, in the big bedroom of the Castle of Cold Immortal School, the little princess had a great sense of beauty. As she saw her mother did not take many items of clothing, she reminded her in a hurry, "Mama, why are we just taking these few items of clothing? Don't we need to be there for quite a few days? These clothes are not enough. We will buy new clothing once we get there." Xian pinched Meng Meng's tender face amusedly as she said, "That's because the weather there is quite cold, super freezing. We need to be dressed in wool coats, jackets, and thick clothing. Besides, we also need to wear earmuffs, thick hats, gloves, masks, and glasses." Meng Meng mumbled confusedly, "Well, we need to wear so much? In that case, we won't be able to walk, will we?" Xian added, "No, we can. We won't feel cold as long as we wear a lot of clothing. We will go to many interesting places at this time, enjoying the ice sculpture show, skiing, enjoying watching the Northeast Tiger, and going to the long street in the city. Besides, there are a lot of local snacks." Meng Meng said quite expectantly, "Then, we should go quickly. Where is Papa?" "Papa is making a call in the next room." As they talked, Zhang Han walked in through the entrance and said, "Let's go." Holding a suitcase, Zhang Han led them to walk out. Meng stretched out her tender arms and followed behind them joyfully as she said, "Let's go." She felt so happy since she was going out to have fun again. As they went downstairs, the group of members, including Wang Zanping, Wang Zanzong, Rong Jiaxin, Wang Ming, and Zuf, were all ready. They formed a motorcade directly and arrived at the airport dozens of minutes later. At this time, the other 6 people including Zhao Feng and Leng Yi were already there. Sun Donging closed the live stream and waited on the plane. Zhang Han and Xian put Meng in a position near the windows in front. After that, they sat beside her and fastened their seatbelts. The plane took off at 9 o'clock. Meng was quite interested in playing in the snow in the north. She chit-chatted along the way and sung a few song lines sometimes. However, she was tired soon and lay on the comfortable chair, falling asleep soundly. On a trip, sleeping is a pretty quick way to get over the long journey. After falling asleep for a while, as they opened their eyes, they found that they had arrived at the destination. Consequently, they almost got to Ice City at 1 p.m. Meng already woke up and stared outside quite surprisedly. "Why are there so many clouds?" Xian said while staring at Zhang Han. "Well, it seems to be snowing here, is it?" "Yes, it should be snowing." Meng waved her tender arms joyfully as she said, "Wow, then we can see the snow after getting off the place. Can I be the same as Princess Elsa? If I move in this way, will the snow fly freely?" Her reaction provoked laughter from the crowd. Xian replied, "No, you can't because Princess Elsa is a character in a fairy tale. In reality, snow falls from the sky." Meng asked confusedly, "Then, where does the snowfall come from?" "It comes down from the layer of thick clouds above us." Meng's big eyes got bright as she said, "Isn't a cloud used for rain? Why does it transform into a snowflake? Is it that Princess Elsa is using her magic?" "No." Xian found it somewhat amusing and pondered it for a while, then said, "When the clouds converge, it will rain. However, the temperature here is too low, so it becomes a snowflake. We are going to get off the plane. We need to put on a few more items of clothing. Come here, Mama will get you dressed." As they chatted, the plane landed at the airport slowly. After it was stable, Xian picked Meng up and dressed her in a hoodie and a coat of hers. Besides that, she also wrapped a towel around her neck. Zhang Han also put on thicker clothes. As for Xian, she was dressed in jeans, a sweater, and a coat. She felt that she had put on very thick clothes. However, it did not occur to them that large snowflakes would pop in front of their eyes as they went out of the airport. "Wow, the snow is so heavy." Meng ran as she jumped. Xian's coat fully covered Meng's face and neck. She looked like a penguin, cute and joyful. Woo, so beautiful and so cold. Xian exhaled and naughtily stretched out her hands in the long white column of mist that she had exhaled. "Let's get in the car first," Zhang Han said, as his voice faded away. "Ah." Meng ran forward one step, stepped on Xian's clothing, and fell into the snowdrift by the road, whose height was 10 centimeters. Meng did not feel any pain at all. Instead, she stood up directly and grabbed the snow with her tender hands as she said, "The snow is melting." The snowflakes melted into water bit by bit. However, after that, Meng felt the coldness. "Papa will dry it for you." Zhang Han walked over smilingly and wiped Meng's hands. After that, he patted the snow off the little girl's body. Wang Zanping could not help laughing as he said, "Ha ha. Meng looks like a beautiful snowman." "I am not a snowman, Papa. Is there any snowman here?" Meng remembered that her papa had told her that he would get a snowman to play with her. Zhang Han chuckled as he said, "Well, there is no snowman here. After we arrive at the dwellings, we can build a snowman." "Yes. At that time, Auntie will help you build a snowman." Rong Jiaxin smiled gently, took a heavy breath, and said somewhat emotionally, "The air is still so chilly. She had been to the northeast many times and experienced the charisma of the snow town. People came and went in a hurry at the exit of the airport. Most of the people wore various kinds of cotton-padded jackets and down jackets. A few who were wearing less were running to the cars with quick strides, feeling pretty cold. Wang Zhanzong smiled and said, "It is not so cold yet. It is not cold when it snows. The cold wind will chill you to the bone in really cold weather. You will be freezing after standing outside for a while." Zhang Han stared at Xian, who felt pretty cold, and said, "Let's get in the car first." Before they came here, Xian had told him that they should not use special powers in daily life. They also needed to experience the coldness while playing in Ice City. At this moment, Zhao Feng reminded them, the motorcade is on the right side. He already saw the group of members including Elder Meng. There were 8 security guards in total, who were standing in front of 8 Land Rover Evoques with white bottoms and black windows. To play in the snow in Ice City, of course, someone needed to come here in advance to prepare. Whether it was the car or the dwelling, it was all prepared. They walked over, got in the car, and found that the temperature inside the car was pretty high. Xian blew on her fingers as she said, "Woo, it is warm inside the car." Meng asked somewhat curiously, "Mama, I don't feel very cold, why?" Xian touched Meng's tender cheeks and hands as she said, "Not cold? Your cheeks and hands are ice cold. Come here, Papa will warm your hands up for you." Zhang Han stretched out his hands and clenched Meng's tender hands. Soon, the motorcade drove outside the airport. The Ice City airport was located on the west of the downtown area. It took them an hour to drive to the dwelling. A few minutes later, the mother and daughter felt warm. Meng bent over the window and stared out of it curiously. This was the first time that she had seen snow in person. "Papa, Mama, it is all white outside, even the houses are white, so are the sky and the trees." Xian blinked her big eyes and said smilingly, "It is because they are covered in snow." Though she had felt cold a moment ago, she found it quite interesting. To those who had never seen the snow, it was quite novel. However, to the ones growing up in the north, it was quite normal. Zhang Han's family members were in the rear. The driver was Zhao Feng. Since he did not know the location, all he could do was to follow the motorcade ahead. Zhao Feng drove the car as he said, "We rented several blocks of villas this time in Ice Bay the First, which is by the riverside. There is a snow amusement playground near the riverside, where people can go dog sledding, ice sliding, snow biking, skiing, riding the tire car, spinning top on the ice, and so on. It is not far away from the city. It takes 20 minutes to walk there." "Well?" As Meng heard each game, her eyes became brighter. As she heard Zhao Feng out, her expectation for playing was completely aroused. "Are there so many interesting amusements? I want to play them." Xian pondered it then said, "We'll buy the new clothing first this afternoon and play tomorrow for the whole day, what do you think?" She had not bought the down jackets in advance, planning to buy them in the local shopping mall of Ice City. Meng thought about it and nodded obediently as she said, "Shopping first, well, okay." That was because she also knew that it was already afternoon and it would get dark soon if they went out to play for a while. It was much more suitable for them to play for the whole day. After they had been driving for half an hour, the motorcade entered the downtown area. Many pedestrians were walking on both sides of the street, who had a lot of clothing on. It snowed heavily, however, there were a snow-moving machine and groundskeepers on each street to ensure the safety of the cars while driving. Along the way, Xian and Meng drew close to the car window on the right side and stared at the street outside curiously. They sensed the time pass by quickly. Soon they got to Ice Bay the First. It was a high-class villa district here, which was adjacent to the riverside. Its geographical location was quite excellent. The local rich or powerful all lived here. Though there were many luxurious residential quarters, and Ice Bay the First was an outstanding one among them. When Elder Meng took his people over, He directly rented 6 blocks of villas and 8 Land Rovers. Meanwhile, it took him 2 days to get familiar with the locations of each amusement spot in Ice City. After they went into the residential quarter, they grabbed their suitcases and allocated the villas. Of course, Zhang Han's family members enjoyed one block exclusively, though it was cold outside. As they walked into the rooms, Xian took off her coat several minutes later and said, "It is so hot inside the room." Even so, she still felt hot. Zhang Han was accustomed to it and smiled as he said, "It is hot in the winter and cool in the summer when you stay in a room in the north. It is 2 o'clock now, I will make some lunch first. After lunch, let's go out shopping." Consequently, Zhang Han found the kitchen. The decoration of the rooms was quite good. The kitchen was spacious as well as clean. Zhang Han took some prepared food ingredients out of the space ring and started frying dishes quickly. During the period, Xian called Master Wang's group members. Except for those who had finished their lunch, including Elder Meng, the others all walked over. Zif rubbed her hands as she said, "Wow, sister-in-law prepares another sumptuous lunch." She was ready to have a square lunch. Consequently, it was 3 p.m. when everyone finished lunch. Xian glimpsed at her watch and said, "Let's go shopping." "Okay, let's go shopping." Meng was also quite interested in shopping. This time, Xian put 2 more pieces of clothing on Meng because Xian had felt quite cold a moment ago. For herself, she was dressed in long woolen socks for winter, thick-plated shoes, and 2 coats. She was all ready to go. In the end, except for Ong Jiaxin, Zif, and Zhao Feng, the others all remained and did not intend to go shopping. Before they went out, Xian asked, "Should we walk there?" "All right." After they went outdoors, the snowflakes stopped falling. As they stepped on the snow, a crisp sound rang out. They walked forward along the riverside for 20 minutes and arrived at the street of the city. Phew. Xian breathed out heavily and said, "It is a bit cold. Let's visit this shopping mall first and buy some clothing, then go out later. What do you think?" Meng is also somewhat cold. Her arms were completely hidden in Xian's long sleeves. Zhang Han clutched at the sleeves and led the little girl forward. Chapter 532, Ice and Snow Amusement Park. The name of the mall was New Era. It was a large shopping mall, inside which were many international brands that Zhang Han was unfamiliar with but Zif and Xian could name. The prices were relatively high. Common clothes were usually priced at 80 to 100 yuan, or 300 to 400 yuan. Those at 800 to 1000 yuan were much better. However, there were also clothes priced at 8,000 to 10,000 yuan, and 80,000 to 100,000 yuan, or even more expensive. What was considered a high price varied among different people, but in the eyes of Zhang Han and Xian, in fact, things either looked good or bad. However, here in the northeast of China, you could always see people in minks priced at tens of thousands of yuan, which made them cool and fashionable. For some people, wearing expensive clothes could indeed improve their class. Fine feathers make fine birds. This saying was not groundless. But some people, even if they wore gold necklaces, expensive watches, and minks, their vulgarity made them just like an upstart. As Zhang Han and Xian were looking around casually, there were 3 men beside them, one of whom said loudly, "Damn it, I'm not bragging to you, I was on Day Street yesterday." "Huh?" Meng froze, turned her head around, and then looked at Zhang Han, pouting, "Papa." His voice is so loud. The voice was a bit rough. Zhang Han turned around and then touched Meng's small head, and said, "It's a little loud, but sometimes happiness matters most." Zhang Han didn't say anything, and never forced Meng to be gentle and cultivated. All he wanted was the happiness of his little princess. Xian was responsible for educating her on this aspect, teaching Meng to be natural and graceful, lively and cheerful. "This down jacket looks pretty good. Give me a smaller one to dry." Xian picked up a white down jacket, the edges of whose hood were fluffy, Its style was slim and its thickness was moderate. Xian felt pretty content with it, so she instructed the shop assistant. Okay. The shop assistant got a smaller one from the side and handed it to Xian. The latter did not go to the fitting room, but just took off her 2 coats, put on the white down jacket, and turned around in front of Zhang Han. What do you think? Pretty, Zhang Han answered with a smile. This down jacket is really suitable for you. The shop assistant smiled and saw Xian's red lips curve up slightly. She looked carefully, and said a little hesitantly, "Are you?" But then she retracted her words. She wanted to say that she looked a lot like Xian, but out of politeness and uncertainty, she didn't ask. "I'll buy this one and just wear it now, just pack up my 2 coats together." Xian looked into the mirror and nodded in satisfaction. The down jacket cost 3,680 yuan. After paying, the group walked forward, ready to go to the children's section to buy one for Meng Meng. The little girl was wearing Xian's coat, like a penguin, wobbly and very cute, but she would not be comfortable if she had to wear it for a long time. When they went out, Rong Jiaxin couldn't help saying, "Xuanhuan really looks good in everything. Auntie looks pretty in everything." Xuanhuan? The shop assistant froze slightly. Is she really Xian? She couldn't help looking at her back, and the more she looked, the more she felt that the lady was Xian. But at this time, she couldn't follow up. She searched for some information about Xian on her mobile phone but soon had to take the next customer. The temperature in the mall is quite high, and it's a little hot in a down jacket. Having worn it for only a few minutes, Xian took it off and hung it on Zhang Han's arm. "Papa, I feel hot too. Can I take off this coat?" Meng Meng asked, raising her head. "Sure." Zhang Han squatted down, took off Meng Meng's coat, and put it in the bag with Xian's coat. "I can move again." Meng Meng dangled her short arms and legs, and jumped happily a few times. "Huh, boots? Should I try some leather boots? But most boots have internal higher heels. Will they make me too tall?" Xian asked hesitantly when she walked by a ladies' shoe store. "No, you will look even better with higher heels. Besides, Han is quite tall, so it doesn't matter if your shoes are a little higher," Rong Jiaxin said with a smile. "I agree, elder sister Yan, you should look good in long boots, but you need a pair of leggings, then a short leather skirt or shorts, plus a down jacket. It is great to dress up this way," Zif said. "Then let me have a try." Xian smiled slightly and took the lead into the shop. Meng Meng followed, and her little arm stretched forward as she mumbled, "Buy, buy, buy." Even if it wasn't for herself, the little girl didn't refuse purchasing. Wearing aviator sunglasses, Xian picked out a few boots. When she sat down and changed into them, the shop assistant made compliments beside her. "Mom, your legs are so long, it's very beautiful to wear such boots. These are all very suitable." "Then pack them all up," Zhang Han said casually. But Xian shook her head slightly. "No, just choose one, we'll continue shopping later." So Xian looked at these shoes and finally chose a good-looking pair of leather boots that cost 1,990 yuan. Then she bought a pair of leggings and shorts, and also a sweater. At the same time, Zhang Han and Meng Meng also bought down jackets, thermal underwear, sweaters, and shoes. In addition to these, standard sets of hats, gloves, earmuffs, and masks were also bought. Of course, Zif and Rong Jiaxin bought new clothes and also took on new looks. Zhao Feng only changed into a sweater, and he still wore a suit because he did not buy a down jacket. After doing mass shopping, it was 5 p.m. and a little dark out. The clothes they bought were sent to Ice Bay the first, and they wandered along Central Street. Out of the mall, most of them took on a new look. Zhang Han, Xian, and Meng Meng were all wearing same hats, peaked caps with earmuffs. On the front of their hats was printed a panda pattern. Their masks were grey and their gloves were a little thick, which wouldn't hinder their movement. Xian, with long boots, was nearly 1.7 to 1.8 meters tall. Tall and slim, Xian attracted much attention. However, no one could recognize her when she dressed up this way. There are people selling sugar-coated haws ahead. Shall we buy a few to try them out? Zhang Han said. Sugar-coated haws? I want to eat some. When Meng Meng heard it, her big eyes lit up, and she was obviously a little foodie. So as everyone walked over, Zhang Han personally lined up to buy sugar-coated haws. Also because they were dressed in masks and earmuffs, Xian and Meng Meng did not feel very cold. Soon, Zhang Han bought 5 sugar-coated haws. These 5 sugar-coated haws were given to Rong Jiaxin, Zif, Zhao Feng, Xian, and Meng Meng respectively. He didn't have one himself, because his wife and daughter could not eat one full. It's so crispy, a little different from those in other places. It's cool and crunchy. Xian bit a piece, and the sweet and sour taste was her favorite. After she ate a little, she handed it to Zhang Han, who also bit one piece and just walked forward while eating. Meng Meng only ate 3 small haws after a long time, then handed hers to Zhang Han. Papa, I can't eat any more. In addition to sugar-coated haws, there were some other snacks. They were eating some snacks while walking, looking around. Central Street was a well-known commercial pedestrian street. With a history of more than 100 years, its architecture was in Western style. Located in the center of Ice City, it was a famous tourist attraction. On this cold winter day, a dense crowd was on both sides of the street. They walked for a while. Dozens of meters in front, a large group of people were watching something. As they got closer, they saw it was the second floor of a building beside. A singer was holding a microphone to sing songs and those walking by were enjoying his performance. It's pretty good. Xian put on her mask and said, well, the atmosphere is good. Zhang Han smiled, lifted up Meng Meng, and placed her on his neck so that she could see more clearly. The performance lasted for 10 minutes, then the crowd dispersed and continued to walk. Central Street was neither long nor short. It took 40 minutes for Zhang Han and his companions to walk slowly from one end of the street to the other. They walked to the other side and returned. This time they bought some souvenirs in various shops alongside the street. Of course, toys were indispensable, so they also bought several for Meng Meng. Halfway through, Meng Meng let go of Zhang Han's hand, ran in front of him quickly, raised her head and said, Papa, I am tired. Then I will hold you in my arms. Okay. Zhang Han held Meng Meng in his arms and walked back slowly. This made Xian chuckle. Such a powerful husband. Another benefit is that I don't have to worry about him getting tired. So Xian held Zhang Han's arm as they strolled down Central Street. It took them another 20 minutes to walk back to Ice Bay the first. It was almost 7 p.m. by this time. What shall we eat tonight? Back in the villa, having rested for 10 minutes, Xian checked some information on her cell phone. Madam, these restaurants are relatively local. Elder Meng took a list directly from the side, and there were about 40 restaurants on it. This was the information they had gotten during many queries these days. Sometimes, those with high ratings on the internet might not be the most distinctive. So many. Xian picked up the list and glanced at it, then said, Darling, Meng Meng, Auntie, what do you want to eat? Whatever, it's up to you. I'm fine with anything, Rong Jiaxin answered with a smile. Then what shall we eat? Xian looked at Zhang Han. Zhang Han also was fine with anything, so he said, you make the decision. There are so many that I don't know which one to choose. Xian looked at the menu-like list. Just as Xian was looking at it, Zif turned her eyes and pointed. Could we try this Yuji sauce bone? It is a local specialty here. Okay, then we'll go there. So they made such a happy decision. The group set off for the restaurant on Dongwu Road. The specialty restaurant was indeed great, except for the quality of the meat. The taste was quite good. After dinner, they returned to the villa. Meng Meng was also tired, so they went to sleep earlier this day. At 8 a.m. the next morning, it was a clear day. After breakfast, the Zhang Han family, Zif, Zhao Feng, Elder Meng, Sun Ming, and Rong Jiaxin walked to the riverbank ahead of Central Street, where the ice and snow amusement park was located. Wow, there are many dogs out there. Are they dogs like in Xanadu? Meng Meng screamed happily when she saw a group of dogs in the distance. They're not the same as the dogs on our mountain, but they are the same kind. They look like Alaskans, right? Xian glanced from a distance. Yes, Alaskan. Zif chuckled and said, sled dogs, they are very good at pulling sleds. Shall we have a try? Zhang Han asked. Let's go. Meng Meng waved her little hands. Stepping on the snow, Zhao Feng bought tickets and finally the family of 3 sat on the sled. At the command of a dog trainer, 3 dogs ran toward their destination. The 3 Alaskans were so big and powerful that they ran very fast, making Xian and Meng Meng scream. After pulling them to the destination, the dogs were instructed by trainers here to run back. After a distance of 100 meters to the destination, the experience of 1 lap was over. Would you like to continue? Zhang Han asked them when he saw that the 2 were having fun. Well, no, they're all tired of running, it's time for them to rest. Meng Meng decided not to continue playing after seeing these 3 dogs so tired. Then let them rest. Zhang Han smiled and carried Meng Meng out. The little princess was very kind. Papa, Mama, shall we play on that slide? After getting off the sled, Meng Meng pointed to the large slide not far from them. People sat on a mat and slid down, sliding for a long distance before stopping. Go. Let's go. The family of 3 headed for the slide. The others didn't follow, and they all went to play with what they were interested in. Zhao Feng wanted to follow, but Zhang Han also let him enjoy his own time. At the slide, there were many people lining up. When the family of 3 were lining up, they took a few selfies. Happy facial expressions were indeed worth remembering. After waiting 20 minutes, it was their turn. They sat on a leather pad and waited at the top of the slide. Whoosh! Xian and Meng Meng were screaming when they slid down. It was a very exciting activity. Meng Meng wanted to slide down again, so they queued up for a second time before going to other places. They also took a kayak pulled by a motor on the snow. Whenever they turned a corner, they would scream. They also sat on a plow that was like a chair, and the family of 3 all held a long iron clamp, pressing on the ice and moving forward quickly as soon as they pressed hard. Besides this, they also played other games. All of this made Meng Meng feel that it was very novel and fun. The little girl was also a bit tough. She fell down on the ice several times, but she patted her butt and stood up every time. It didn't hurt much to fall down in thick clothes. From morning until nearly 1 p.m., whatever they could experience was experienced. Just when they were about to leave, there came several whistle sounds from the right side of the venue, and one person was talking via a microphone. The snowball fight is about to start. The snowball fight is about to start. It is free. Anyone who wants to participate, please come here. Hey, you people playing over there, go Hain, from a dialect in northeast China, meaning what are you doing? Be careful not to fall into the river. Come here to have a snowball fight. Hurry up. Anyone who wants to participate, please come here. Clatter, clatter. Many people were attracted and went over. Shall we play? Zhang Han looked at Xian and said, sure. Xian's eyes brightened. She only watched snowball fights on TV, so she started finding partners. Fei Fei, Xiaofeng, Auntie, please come here, let's have a snowball fight together. Meng Meng blinked her big, clear eyes, looked around, and ran to Zhang Han. Papa, hold me in your arms. At her words, Zhang Han held the little girl in his arms. Papa, what is a snowball fight? Meng Meng asked curiously. It is a game in which people make the snow on the ground into a ball with their hands and throw it at each other. A snowball won't hurt when it hits the body. It is a group game, Zhang Han explained. Well, Meng Meng thought and hesitated for 2 seconds, then asked, what does Gaha mean? It's in the dialect of the Northeast. It means what are you doing? Gohain, which the guy said just now, means what are you doing? Zhang Han answered with a slight smile. What are you doing, Gohain? The little girl learned very quickly. After saying it 2 times, she looked at Xian, who was finding partners, and said, Mama, Gohain, eh? Xian was stunned suddenly. Looking at the little girl in Zhang Han's arms, she giggled. Xian couldn't stop laughing. Mama, why are you laughing all the time? Meng Meng asked in confusion. Because she thinks you are cute. Huh. Meng Meng muttered and saw Zhao Feng and others coming. Then the little girl said again, Uncle Feng, Gohain, Granny, Gohain. The little girl's words made everyone laugh. Meng Meng, you are learning so fast, you're so cute, we are going to have a snowball fight. You will stand behind Papa, and he will protect you. Xian smiled and touched Meng Meng's small head. I can also make a snowball and throw it over. Meng Meng said in an imposing manner, HMPH, I'm super powerful. Well, she was super cute indeed. People gathered in the snowball fight field. In less than 5 minutes, 60 to 70 people gathered here. It was a 50-50 game. In the middle, there was a line about 7 to 8 meters long, linked by 2 flags, just like the border of 2 opposing powers. Well, there are 2 sides having the snowball fight. You guys cannot cross the line in the middle. Before you start, let's have some fun and we will record a video. Friends on the left, please say aloud what are you watching? While I raise my right hand, friends on the right, please answer I am just watching you. Then friends on the left say dare you watch me again? Friends on the right please answer okay, I dare. After this, our snowball fight will begin. Do you remember? Please say it aloud. Ready? As the staff livened up the atmosphere, everyone was ready. The next moment, he whistled and raised his right hand. At the same time, the crowd on the left shouted in unison, what are you watching? Everyone on the right replied, I'm just watching you. Xian and Zuf also shouted with others. Even Meng Meng followed them in confusion, I'm just watching you. Dare you watch me again? Okay, I dare. Swish. The snowball fight began. Everyone squatted down in a timely manner, holding a handful of snow with both hands, then making a snowball and throwing it high. Soon, snowballs were flying all over the field. No one knew which piece of snowball hit them, and the flying snowballs aroused people's interest to play. Screams and shouts were here and there. Chapter 533, An Old Classmate. When there were many people having a snowball fight, it was quite interesting. The little princess hid behind Zhang Han's legs and managed to make a small snowball. Go. Meng Meng threw it with great energy, and the snowball rose into the air, then fell to the ground. Just throwing it out 4 or 5 meters was the result of all of Meng Meng's energy. Well? Meng Meng looked at the snowball that hadn't even crossed the middle line, and froze slightly. This is not a snowball fight. Why can't I throw it over? So the little girl picked up a handful of snow again and made it into a small snowball. This time, Zhang Han noticed the little princess and thought, that tiny snowball flew forward. Boom. The snowball hit a young man's leg. The snowball was so small that the man who was hit didn't even feel it, but the little girl giggled. I hit someone. Then she continued playing happily. Xian and Zuf had never experienced such a large-scale snowball fight, so they were enjoying themselves as well. Suddenly, Xian said, Honey, honey. Huh? Zhang Han slowly turned his head. Boom. 2 clusters of snowflakes burst open on Zhang Han's head. Well, you've attacked me, Meng Meng, let's fight back. Zhang Han shook his head and threw snowballs with Meng Meng at Xian. The family of 3 threw snowballs at each other, then they began to attack the enemies on the opposite side together. A new round of attacks began. Under Zhang Han's protection, Meng Meng was unscathed and had a lot of fun. At 1 p.m., they decided to go back for lunch. They walked from the riverbank to the road on the upper side. Zhang Han took off his sunglasses and wiped off the snow. At this time, a man of about 1.75 meters tall passed by, with a flat-top haircut. The man was a little fat and his eyes were big. He was wearing a black mink coat, jeans, and leather shoes, with a gold necklace and leather purse. He couldn't help glancing at Xian, such a pretty lady. Then, he looked at Meng and finally looked at Zhang Han curiously. Who is so lucky to have such a beautiful wife and daughter? Seeing Zhang Han, he froze slightly, but he continued walking another 3 steps. Suddenly, he stopped and stared at Zhang Han. Quickly, he walked back and stared at Zhang Han. Zhang Han glanced around and saw the man's appearance, and he froze slightly. Such a coincidence, Brother Han? The man asked hesitantly all of a sudden. Zhang Han, who put on his sunglasses again, was not sure. Xuanhuan? Zhang Han asked a little unexpectedly. Damn it, Brother Han, what a coincidence. The man with the flat top stared and said in surprise, Brother Han, you are here in Ice City, what a coincidence, ha ha ha. Seeing his appearance, Zhang Han smiled slightly, took off his sunglasses, and nodded. What a coincidence. This made Xian and Meng stunned. They were acquainted. Zhou, Rongjiaxin, and Zhao Feng also stopped and looked curiously at the tyrant with a standard look. Brother Han, when did you arrive here? Xuanhuan said very kindly, stretching out a hand to hold Zhang Han's right arm. I arrived yesterday for tourism. It seems that you are living a decent life. Zhang Han smiled and looked him up and down. Just so, don't focus on me, Brother Han, I haven't seen you in many years, and I couldn't contact you afterward. Damon, Elder Fu and I, we missed you so much. We were so anxious after hearing about that incident. Now that you are here in Ice City, let's do some catching up. As Xuanhuan spoke, he looked at the people beside Zhang Han. He hesitantly asked, they are? My wife and daughter, Zhang Han replied. Oh, nice to meet you. Xuanhuan hurriedly greeted them with his left hand fumbling in his bag, then he patted his pocket twice, and finally scratched his head, and said, it is such a coincidence that I have no presents. You're too courteous. Xian smiled slightly and answered politely, well, you don't have to be so courteous. Meng politely waved her hand and said, I haven't prepared anything for you, my elder sister. But as this is my first time meeting your daughter, I must give her something. Xuanhuan hurriedly turned around, opened his purse, and turned back with a bulging red envelope in his hand. Judging from its thickness, there should be 2,000 to 3,000 yuan in it. Such an amount of money could be considered a relatively expensive gift here. The more intimate they were, the thicker the red envelope would be. You don't have to, you're so courteous. Xian repeatedly said and waved her hands. My elder sister, please accept my offerings. Brother Han has been really kind to me, and we are really good friends, Xuanhuan said seriously. Just take it. Zhang Han smiled slightly and nodded at Xian. Well. Xian also smiled, looking at Meng, and said, Meng, this is your Uncle Xuanhuan's gift. Well, thank you. Uncle Xuanhuan. Meng took the red envelope and said very smartly, well, at the girl, ha ha ha. Xuanhuan then smiled, looked at Zhang Han, and said, Brother Han, elder sister, how about having a party to catch up? I will inform Damon and Elder Fu. I just saw that you were in a hurry. I guess you have something to deal with, Zhang Han said. Nope, as I've encountered you, Brother Han, I will deal with my affairs later. This time, let's have some drinks and catch up. Xuanhuan hesitated for a second, but he soon made the decision. Zhang Han definitely could tell and thought for a second and replied, as I am not available right now, go deal with your affairs first, let's catch up another day. Another day? That's fine. Xuanhuan groaned and said, Brother Han, how about tomorrow night? Elder Fu's girlfriend will have a birthday party, and there will be many people present, but it won't affect our catching up. How about it? Okay, tomorrow. It was hard to refuse his kindness, so Zhang Han nodded. "Brother Han, give me your phone number and we chat. We shall keep in touch with each other from now on." Having received Zhang Han's phone number and WeChat, Xuanhuan said farewell to them and left. Xuanhuan walked more than 20 meters forward and got in a black Toyota Highlander worth around 300,000 yuan. It seemed that he had been living a decent life. Zhang Han and his group walked toward Ice Bay the first. On the way, Xian asked curiously, "Who is he?" "His name is Xuanhuan, my college classmate. We were good friends on campus." The other two friends he mentioned are Chen Man and Fu Hongshan. Zhang Han replied, "They are all people from Ice City. They came back here after graduation." "Oh, why didn't you tell me about your good friends before?" Xian nodded while pouting. Zhang Han suddenly laughed and said, "I was outgoing before and had so many friends, but I didn't have many intimate friends. They were my intimate friends on campus. Besides, I have another friend named Chen Chenking. He grew up with me, but I don't know where his family sent him." "Chen Chenking, it seems that I have heard this name before," Zif muttered suddenly. A little confused, she couldn't remember where she had heard that name before. While talking and laughing all the way, they got back to the villa in Ice Bay the first. Zhang Han took out the ingredients he brought with him to make lunch. After this meal, almost all the ingredients were used up. There was limited space in his space ring, so he didn't take many ingredients. Besides, there were many restaurants that they wanted to explore. After they finished lunch, "Papa, Mama, when are we going to make a snowman?" Meng asked with a little expectation. "Now?" Zhang Han smiled slightly. "Okay, go." Xian also said with a smile. This time, only the family of three was making the snowman. No one wanted to disturb their family time. "There is not enough snow on the road. Shall we make the snowman around the big flower bed in front?" Xian pointed to the big flower bed in the center of the small square inches front. There was thick snow in it. "Go." Zhang Han held Meng's small gloved hand and ran forward. When they got closer, Zhang Han put down the little girl on the edge of the flower bed and held Xian's hand, stepping on the snow. "How to make a snowman?" Meng asked in confusion. "A normal snowman is made up of a big snowball as its body, a small snowball as its head, a hat, a scarf, buttons as eyes, and then..." Before Xian finished, Meng stretched out her little arms and cheered, I know, use a red carrot as its nose, and tiny sticks as arms. That's what Princess Elsa's little snowman looks like. Then shall we make a snowman like that?" "Great." So the family of three started bling up the snow. The snow is dry now, but it is easy to make a snowman when the snow is about to melt. In this case, I will hold 2 snowballs first, and then we will start. Zhang Han smiled, took off his gloves, stretched out his hands, and made 2 snowballs. Snowflakes were melted by the temperature of his palms, making the snow denser. After putting them on the ground and rolling, a while later, 2 bigger snowballs were rolled up. As the snowball got bigger, more energy was needed. "Ah, I can't push it. 1, 2, 3, come on." Effort was made by the family of 3. 2 1-meter-high snowballs were placed on the edge of the flower bed. After a while, 2 small snowballs were put together and placed on the big snowballs, forming a simple prototype of a snowman. "Ah, we need another one, Papa, Mama, and Meng." Meng looked around and finally found something wrong. "Ha, then we will make another small snowman." Zhang Han smiled and started making another snowman again. A small snowman was finally placed in between the 2 big snowmen. The little girl was then satisfied. After 3 snowmen were made, Xian's and Meng's faces were frozen red, so they hurried back to the villa to warm up. After a while, they came out with hats, scarves, carrots, and other things. Zhang Han got a few sticks directly from the tree beside him. With their efforts, 3 complete snowmen were finally made. At this time, Zif also came out and took a few photos of the snowman. Fei, take some photos for us. Xian thought for a while and gave her mobile phone to Zif. The family of 3 sat on the edge of the flower bed, behind whom were 3 snowmen. Click, click, photos were left on the phone. They posed with a common peace sign and duck face. Meng and Xian sat on Zhang Han's neck, and took a photo respectively. Besides that, another photo was taken while Zhang Han held Meng in his arms and Xian on his back. Various photos with happy smiles were preserved. It was not just the lady and the girl who laughed happily. Zhang Han's smile from the heart convinced everyone that they were a happy family. At this time, from the 2nd floor of the villa opposite the flower bed, Ow! Sun Donging yawned and looked down. Woo, my boss and 3 snowmen, so romantic. I have to say that their snowmen are very beautiful. Well, I can't play games all night today. Sanpang is too energetic, one game after another. Speak of the devil and he is sure to appear. While Sun Donging was muttering, his cell phone rang. Picking it up, Sun Donging pouted his lips. He answered the phone. Hey, Sanpang, just woke up? I woke up just now, too. A party tonight? What time? Sun Donging hesitated when he heard the words, thinking that he needn't accompany his boss and his family. He nodded and agreed. Okay, I'll go there at 8:30 p.m. Sanpang had invited him twice, so it would be embarrassing if he refused this time. After thinking for a while, he started to make preparations. Zhang Han and his family were playing in front of the flower bed downstairs after taking many photos. Boss, madam, shall we eat out tonight? My treat. Sun Donging said. Your treat? Of course, that's all right. I'll order something expensive. Zif said deliberately. Ha, whatever you want to order, it's okay as long as you're pleased. Sun Donging answered with a big smile, thought for a while, and then said, as I broadcast online, a friend here has invited me many times. I'm going to meet him directly after dinner, so I may get back late at night. Actually, when going out, Sun Donging could leave by himself, but to them, Zhang Han was like the backbone, so Sun Donging couldn't help telling him. If Zhang Han didn't agree, he wouldn't go out. But Zhang Han would definitely agree. Go wherever you want to go. Zhang Han smiled softly and replied casually. Then, shall I have Xiaofeng arrange 2 people to follow you? Xian blinked and asked. No need, no trouble, I can just go there. I have known this friend for a long time, there won't be any trouble. Sun Donging waved his hands. Okay. Xian smiled slightly. So at around 6 p.m., they went to eat dumplings in a restaurant called Xuanhuan. The taste was pretty good, but Zhang Han still believed that the dumplings his parents made were better. When he thought of his parents, Zhang Han would always get emotional. In fact, sometimes, only when one became a father could he understand some of the thoughts and difficulties of his parents. Raising children was not easy. Mum and Dad, I'll pick you up in about 10 months. Right now, spiritual chi dried up in the world. But from another aspect, the speed of practice was quite fast, which was because of the spirit treasure. St. Martial Planet, the number of spirit treasures was endless. However, Zhang Han guessed that there were certain problems here. The number of spirit treasures was small, but they also appeared endlessly, and the competition was fiercer. Like the crushed and sealed St. Martial Planet, the spiritual chi was thin in the world. Martial arts also couldn't be adopted, but there was also a limit. He had no way to practice apart from using spirit treasures. A person remained mortal until he reached the innateness stage. After reaching the innateness stage, one would have more ways. And more importantly, when breaking through to the innateness stage, his soul sense would become extremely strong. He believed that as long as he broke through to the innateness stage, at that time, his soul sense would be stronger than that of in the first innateness stage. Thinking about it carefully, what a horrible thing. But all of this had a premise, that was to have 10,000 clouds. Since the number of clouds became 2,000, Zhang Han knew it. The limit of his soul sense C was 10,000 clouds, the 10-inch stanchion. That is to say, his foundation was very good. But benefits would show up only when he reached the innateness stage. After eating dumplings, it was about 8 p.m., and they returned to Ice Bay the first to rest. Sun Donging hailed a car by himself. "Drive me to the Hongxing Club." "Okay," the driver responded, then drove forward while chatting at the same time. "From your accent, I guess you are traveling here." "Yes, I come from Hong Kong," Sun Donging answered. "Hong Kong is quite good. I heard that the pace of life is very fast, and people work very hard there. Dense population, but limited land." "It's true." The driver was very talkative and talked with Sun Donging all the way. This made Sun Donging think that the driver was so warm-hearted because he wanted to drive a longer distance to earn more money, but the driver only charged him the base fare, which showed that he was just talkative. After paying, Sun Donging glanced at the gate of the Hongxing Club. It was very luxurious, and it was surely a relatively high-end club here. Sanpang walked out quickly within 1 minute after Sun Donging made a call to him. He was not wearing very thick clothes, and he was about 1.75 meters tall. He was a little fat, which probably got him the nickname of Sanpang. Pang means fat in Chinese. Donging. Sanpang had great eyesight, and he saw Sun Donging not far from the side of the gate immediately. "Come on over." As he was talking, Sanpang walked over. "Damn it, Sanpang, you are so cute at your weight." Sun Donging and Sanpang hugged. The two had talked a few times in recent days, and Sun Donging's live broadcast also revealed his personality and character. Sanpang felt that he could get on well with Sun Donging, so he invited him to the party. "Hurry up, go ahead, there are a few of my friends inside. Let's sit together for a while and then go out and have some fun by ourselves." Sanpang laughed. When he laughed, there was a dimple on the right side of his face, which looked quite chic. "Okay, I will follow what you, as the host says." Sun Donging answered with a smile. The two talked into the club, then they walked to the end of the corridor on the right side of the first floor. It was room 001. Inside were 15 or 16 people. Sanpang sat beside Sun Donging and took the initiative to introduce everyone. "They are my friends. Let me make some introductions. He is Donging, born with a silver spoon in his mouth, from Hong Kong. He usually broadcasts online for fun." "Nice to see you." Sun Donging greeted them while smiling and nodding. Glancing around, he felt that these people were not very intimate. Only 2 people besides Sanpang responded to him enthusiastically. Another 5 or 6 people nodded politely. Many people just ignored him and seemed to have not seen him. There were 2 or 3 people who mocked him, and one ponytailed woman carrying a Louis Vuitton bag murmured, "A live streamer?" Her expression was disdainful. Chapter 534, Live Streamer Hit by a Group. Sun Donging had participated in such gatherings many times. He could easily tell that these people present were not very intimate. Sun Donging just ignored what the lady with the ponytail said. However, the lady continued finding faults. She squinted at Sanpang, smirked and said, "Sanpang, why are you always talking so cluelessly? If you want to introduce a friend, just introduce him. You don't have to lie that he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. Besides, everyone here now was also. What's more, would a silver-spooned person live stream all day?" Her words made Sanpang a little unhappy. So he frowned and said, "Why do I always have to encounter you? I don't want to talk to you. Don't bother me here." "What? You brought him to our private room. Can't I say anything about it?" The lady with the ponytail fought back. This made many people present ready to rubberneck. At the same time, Sun Donging also understood. This lady had a bad relationship with Sanpang, and he was completely involved passively. But it was a bit awkward indeed. Sanpang was also aware of this. As the lady was constantly finding faults, his face darkened. "Li Xiao Xiao, don't push your luck. You'd better think about what your job was." Sanpang said a little angrily. As soon as this remark was made, the atmosphere on the scene cooled down. A man with a flat-top haircut next to Li Xiao holding a wine glass was a little shocked. He said in a low voice, "Sanpang, watch your words. I didn't talk nonsense, everyone knows it." Sanpang cared little and spread out his hands. Everyone knew that Li Xiao had been a prostitute before, and she had been a mistress kept by Wai Zedong after he took a fancy to her. She is even not silver-spooned, she is just borrowing power to do evil. Get real. Sanpang was very annoyed. But these words weren't spoken out loud after all. Even a friend beside kicked his foot under the table to warn him. Wai Zedong had a relatively high status. His family was wealthy and high class in Ice City. Besides, his boss, Bai Pingyuan, was influential. Bai Pingyuan was super powerful in Ice City, one of the most influential and powerful childs. The Bai family's strength in Ice City was among the top 3. The Bai family had always been powerful and wealthy, making it hard for other common well-born people to catch up with them. Because of this, Wai Zedong got many benefits and even entered into the core circle of his family. You said that everyone knows. When child Y comes, I will have him ask you what you meant. Li Xiao smiled softly. This made Sanpang speechless. With a slight movement of his lips, he tried to say something, but held back. He felt angry. Just a woman backed by Wai Zedong. Don't push your luck here. Wai Zedong will abandon you one day, and I look forward to what you will look like then. Sanpang thought in his mind but said nothing. Seeing the aggressive Li Xiao, the short-haired woman sitting on the innermost side smiled and said, "Enough, I invited everyone here today, let's be kind to each other. I'm going to the army tomorrow, I don't know when I will see you next time." "That's right." Sanpang grinned and said, "I came here only because of your invitation. Look at yourself, who is willing to invite you?" Li Xiao pouted her lips and glanced at Sun Donging and said, "You bring a toy boy with you, are you gay?" These words completely annoyed Sanpang. So peculiar, am I too good-tempered? Before Sanpang said anything, Sun Donging sneered and said, "I've also learned a few words of the Northeast dialects. Haha, you are bad-looking and bad-tempered. If you want to know my sexual orientation, how about going with me to the room next door?" Swish. As soon as he said that, everyone present was shocked. "What did you say?" Li Xiao slapped the table and stood up. Many people were ready to rub a neck. In fact, many people were annoyed with Li Xiao. But as she backed by Wai Zedong, so nobody dared to say anything. Some people were happy with Sun Donging's words, but they didn't show it. Sanpang was also stunned, but then his eyes showed that he was not afraid. Wai Zedong could make Sanpang afraid, but Li Xiao couldn't. Li Xiao, who do you think you are? You are a nobody without child Y. Sanpang stood up and stared at Li Xiao, then looked at the short-haired woman, the host, and said, "Elder sister, I am here today because of your invitation. When you come back next time, I will treat you. Today, my friend is here, and it is not very convenient. See you next time." "Okay, see you next time." The short-haired woman smiled resignedly at Sanpang. As Sanpang stooped up, the two young men next to him also stood up. Just when they were about to leave, suddenly, the door opened, and a group of 7 people came in. In the front was a man with yellow hair, a long face, and diamond earrings. His arrival made the atmosphere tense. At this time, if Li Xiao didn't say anything, there would be nothing at all. Moreover, in the eyes of many people, it was not worth the trouble. However, child Y, Li Xiao's eyes turned red, and said aggrievedly, "I said that I didn't want to come here, now I arrived here first, and someone said bad words to me with cynicism. Who?" Wai Zedong's tone was flat, as if he didn't care, but he deliberately looked at the 3 fat guys without any reason, and went directly to Li Xiao and sat down, his right hand resting on her shoulder. Those two Li Xiaoxiao stared at Sanpang and Sun Donging, then leaned over and muttered beside Wei Zedong's ears. After hearing Li Xiaoxiao's words, Wei Zedong's face darkened. He took out a metal box of yellow Crane Tower cigarettes from his pocket with his right hand and lit one. Silence. Of the 6 people together with Wei Zedong, 3 sat at the table and the other 3 blocked the door. Sun Donging was already distressed at this time. His parents told him not to bother his boss. However, it seemed that he would make some trouble this time. Looking at Wei Zedong, he felt that he had some power indeed. Everyone else on the scene was afraid to speak because they were afraid to cause some trouble. Wei Zedong smoked, speechless. Li Xiaoxiao looked coldly at the people in front of the door. The short-haired woman hesitated, then said, "Child Wei, I invited Sanpang and his friends here. Besides, they are going to help me with some things." These words meant that she would be responsible for what had happened, and the key point was whether or not Wei Zedong would do her a favor. As a matter of fact, she was going into the army, and with the cultivation of her family, she would be in charge of some things when she came back. Wei Zedong was very willing to establish good ties with her. So he smiled at her and said, "Since you've asked, I'll definitely do you this favor." He waved his hands at the doorway. The 3 people then stepped aside. Sanpang wanted to say something, but he didn't and took the lead to leave. Just when he got to the door, Wei Zedong said, "Sanpang, I won't do anything today, but in the future, you'd better be careful." Swish. This made Sanpang feel very awkward, so he slowly turned his head and said with a fake smile, "Child Wei has a point." Wei Zedong casually threw the remaining half-cigarette into the ashtray, and said, "Besides, someone has said something he shouldn't say. I think you know how to deal with it." Sanpang's face froze. Sanpang took the lead to leave. When they went through the gate, the 2 men beside Sanpang changed their perception of Sun Donging. Wei Zedong's words meant that Sanpang should punish Sun Donging. If Sanpang would punish Sun Donging, this incident would come to an end. If not, maybe Sanpang would be punished by Wei Zedong one day. They remained silent along the way. Out the gate, Sun Donging sighed and said, "Sanpang, sorry to have made some trouble for you. I'll find someone to solve the problem." "Don't say that. Wei Zedong is not that powerful to make me scared. He just has a powerful boss." "Never mind it. They don't dare to make some trouble with me. Let's go and have some fun." Sanpang spoke a little angrily. It made Sun Donging laugh. Sometimes, from some things, one could tell if making a friend was worth it. He did not refuse, and went to eat barbecue and drink freshly brewed beer with Sanpang and his 2 friends. They had a great time. In the end, they were all a bit drunk. Sanpang and his 2 friends drove sports cars, so they hired others to drive them home. Sanpang invited Sun Donging to get together tomorrow. He would treat Sun Donging the whole day tomorrow. There was going to be a birthday party tomorrow night. Many beautiful girls would be present. They joked that the girls would fall in love with Sun Donging because he was good looking. Sun Donging was good at drinking, a little drunk but still clear-headed. He took a taxi to return to Ice Bay the first. After he walked in, he took out the device from his bag and started live streaming. Stepping on the snow made some crunchy sounds, and the streetlights in the community were brightly lit. With the bright moon and white snow, the surrounding environment was clearly seen. Alcohol, yes, I drank with Sanpang. I'm now in Ice City and he treated me. How is he? He is handsome, but not as handsome as me. Ha ha, thank you for your 2 rockets, Damawa. Look, it snowed today, so it's quite cold, but it's fun. By the way, there are 3 beautiful snowmen made by my boss's family in front. Let me show you. Sun Donging walked a lot faster to the flower bed in front and pointed the camera at the snowman. It looks good, right? Where am I staying now? I am now in Ice Bay the first, seemingly a luxurious villa area. So Sun Donging sat there and live streamed. He decided to go into the house once he felt cold. He hoped to sober himself up, as he was a little drunk. As he was live streaming, 3 black paramolas drove by slowly on the road 40 to 50 meters away on the right. In the car in front, a buzzcut man in the passenger seat suddenly said, "Well, blue cotton suit and a red hat, was he the guy we met in the club? Damn it, stop." After the car stopped, the buzzcut man looked at Wai Zedong, who was holding Li Xiaoxiao in the back seat. "Child, why should we beat him?" Wai Zedong glanced at Sun Donging sitting next to the flower bed. "Up to you. Go." The buzzcut man glanced at Li Xiaoxiao, grinned, opened the door, and got out. He waved to his brothers in the car behind, and a group of 6 quietly set off. Wai Zedong had no interest in watching this. All his attention was focused on the beauty beside him. He even unknowingly put one hand under her clothes, and the other hand waved at the driver. 3 cars drove forward slowly, and Sun Donging didn't realize the danger. Holding his mobile phone and looking at the villa, he said, "The others seem to be sleeping. I also feel a bit cold. I will sit here for another 2 minutes then return to my room. I may continue live streaming for another half an hour. I will go to bed early today and go out with Sanpang tomorrow for the day." While talking, he looked at real-time bullet screens and said, "What? Someone's behind me? Don't scare me at night. Why should I run away?" Sun Donging looked at these bullet screens and froze. When he turned his head, a huge snowball smashed into his head. Huh? Being drunk, Sun Donging recognized that it was the head of the snowman that represented his boss. "Damn it!" Sun Donging shouted. Boom! Sun Donging felt snowflakes on his nose and head. He knew that he had been hit by someone. He wanted to run away, but he slipped and fell to the ground, so he arched his body and protected his head with both hands. Another snowball hit him again, followed by some kicks. Zoom! Just as the man was shouting, many people sensed it. Wang Zanping, Wang Ming, Rong Jiaxin, Leng Yi Zhaofeng, and Elder Meng woke up immediately. Zhang Han woke up more quickly. Using his soul sense, he knew what was happening. But at this time, Xian was on his body, so he didn't move. When he was about to use his spiritual force, he saw that Zhao Feng had rushed over, so he didn't do anything. Whoosh! Zhao Feng was so speedy. Like a ghost at night, stepping on the snow was like stepping on flat ground. Behind him, Elder Meng, Leng Yi, and the security group rushed over. Wang Zanping and Wang Ming didn't go out when they saw the situation. They just stood at the window and looked down. Sun Donging knew that he was beaten, and was a little panicked, but it seemed that he was only kicked 7 or 8 times. In fact, it was not very painful because he had a down jacket on. 2 kicks at his head were blocked by his hands, which made the back of his hands a little painful and numb. He had no other feelings. Bang, bang, bang. Following these sounds were their groans. Sun Donging shook off the snow on his head and said, "Brother Feng, are you okay?" Zhao Feng came over and pulled him up. After seeing 2 snowmen without their heads, Zhao Feng's face was a little gloomy. It would be bad if Meng saw this. Sun Donging scratched his head and said with a bit of shame, "I'm sorry to cause you such trouble." Zhao Feng shook his head slightly, and looked coldly at the 6 people lying on the ground. They were all groaning. Looking at these people who had appeared suddenly, they tried to figure out what was happening. When did they come here? Who are you? The buzzcut man looked at the approaching Zhao Feng and said. Zhao Feng said nothing. But his right foot stepped on the leg of the buzzcut man. Crack! When he was about to scream, Zhao Feng kicked his neck, making him dizzy and almost dead. Swish, swish, swish. The other 5 people's faces drastically turned pale. They could not stop trembling. What is going on? How is he so powerful? We are Wai Zedong's underlings, you'd better. The others got frightened at this time. Several people surrounded them, so there was nowhere to run. Zhao Feng only glanced at the 3 people who spoke, and frowned. Elder Meng beside him hit them. The 3 people were dizzy from the pain. Seeing this, Sun Donging's mouth jittered. It's great to be protected. He thought for a while then said, Brother Feng, let me explain. He simply stated what had happened. Having learned what had happened, Zhao Feng said nothing, looking at the other two people indifferently. He uttered two words. Get lost. Got it. Got it. The two were relieved, and they were just too nervous to speak. Just because they hadn't spoken, they were not beaten. The two stood up nervously. They nearly forgot their fellows as they were about to run away. So each of them grabbed two people and dragged them out. Looking at their back, Zhao Feng shook his head slightly. Then, looking at the two damaged snowmen again, he said, let's fix them. So, this late at night, they started to repair the snowmen. Fortunately, only these two big snowmen had been damaged. Many hands make light work. They started blowing up snow there. At the same time, with the buzzcut man and his fellows, two of them were pulling the other four people. They struggled to return to their villa where they lived. It was Wai Zedong's villa, and these underlings only temporarily lived here. Taking a look at the time, one of the underlings thought that Wai Zedong might not be dealing with any important business, so he hurried to call him. But the call was hung up. He dialed again, only to be told the number he dialed was powered off. After thinking for a while, he and his companions took the injured to the hospital. It seemed that he could only wait until tomorrow to tell Child why what had happened. It took Zhao Feng and the others about 10 minutes to repair the snowman. During this time, Sun Donging picked up his phone from the ground. At a glance, bullet screens were here and there. What happened to the live streamer? Gosh, there were screams just now. The live streamer got attacked by a group. What can I do? What trouble has Brother Dong made? Seeing this, Sun Donging's mouth trembled slightly. Even the official administrators checked over. There was no doubt that he would make some headlines the next day. The title would be, a well-known live streamer got attacked by a group of people late at night when live streaming. This would definitely attract much attention. Sun Donging laughed bitterly and hurriedly said, I am fine, it's a misunderstanding. It's fine, it's getting late, I'm going offline, good night, everyone. Waving his hands toward the camera, Sun Donging went offline. Back in his room, Sun Donging did some simple cleaning up. He took a shower and went to bed. The next day, just as he woke up, ding! Sun Donging's cell phone rang. The call was from Sanpang. Does he know what happened last night? Sun Donging froze and picked up the phone. Donging, were you attacked by a group of people yesterday? To some extent. Damn it! Sanpang said angrily on the phone. This made Sun Donging shocked. Why do you get surprised and frightened so easily? Were you attacked by Wai Zedong? Sanpang asked in an angry tone. It was his underlings. How are you now? Sanpang hurriedly asked again. I'm fine, I was only kicked a few times. Phew. Sanpang was relieved. But then, Sun Donging added, but his subordinates were badly hurt. 4 people got their legs broken. What? Sanpang's voice increased by 3 decibels. Were they beaten by you? Damn it, how powerful you are. Not me, how could I defeat them? Sun Donging smiled bitterly. Who was it then? After a little hesitation, Sun Donging finally answered, yes. My boss is here. It was my boss's subordinates. If those guys were elsewhere, I really couldn't do anything, but at the gate where my boss was staying, they were so lucky to only have broken legs. After he said that, Sun Donging heard a crackling sound coming from his mobile phone. Apparently the phone fell to the ground. About 5 seconds later, Sanpang screamed, wow, your super powerful boss is here as well. Chapter 535, Elder Fu's Marriage. I didn't say that my boss is not here, Sun Donging said with an embarrassed smile. I've mentioned in my live streaming room that all those private helicopters belonged to my boss. How would I dare to take his helicopter without him on it? Damn it, I've seen that. I was playing the alliance with several game live streamers while watching your live stream. Sanpang forgot what had happened just now, and said repeatedly, you won't be tolerant of Wai Zedong anymore, right? Your boss is here, and he is famous in Hong Kong. Does he know any influential celebrities here? I don't know his friends, but Wherever he goes, he is always the most powerful person. Even the whole Wei family can't restrain him, let alone Wei Zedong. Sun Donging replied with a casual smile. Really? Is he really that brilliant? Sanpang felt cold at the root of his tooth. Sanpang was shocked by the news and took some time to calm himself down. Then he forced a smile and said, Donging, I'm so curious about your boss. Could you please tell me something about him? I'll keep it to myself. This. Sun Donging hesitated for a while and then replied, You'd better give up this idea. My boss is traveling with his family here, and we'll be going back to Hong Kong in a few days. There is no chance for you to be introduced to him or communicate with him in depth. You're quite right. Sanpang realized that he had made an impolite request, so he thought for a while then changed the subject. Did you have breakfast yet? What about coming here to have breakfast with me? Okay, I'll come to meet you. I'm in Cheng Mansion, and you can drive my Ferrari during your stay here. I'll take some bodyguards with me this time, in case those fools may try to get back at you. Wei Zedong will be astonished when he finds out that his men were beaten by you. Haha, I'm so happy. We should have a good time and celebrate it. Sanpang burst out laughing. After determining the meeting place, Sun Donging began to make some preparations. In fact, Wei Zedong was even more astonished when hearing that his men's legs were broken by someone. Is it true? Wei Zedong's eyes were widely open, as he still couldn't believe the news. He was shocked and even at a loss. It was incredible that the foreigner he wanted to punish could break all his men's legs. He was confused when he heard of the sudden appearance of that guy's helpers. And what surprised him was that all that guy's helpers were so powerful that they defeated all his men in just a few moves. Besides that, they were not afraid when they heard Wei Zedong's name. Did I meet with setbacks this time? Wei Zedong frowned, hesitating for a while. He said, he also stays in this community, so we should be able to find out something. I'll give you 3 days to send someone to find out his origin. Yes. His men nodded. After his men left, Wei Zedong looked out of the window coldly. It's not easy to bully my men, if you are not as powerful as me. Wei Zedong's intention was self-evident. In the morning, all 3 of Zhang Han's family, Zhao Feng, Zif, Wang Ming, and Rong Jiaxin got up early. They finished breakfast at 7 o'clock. Papa, Mama, what is skiing? Before they went out, Meng asked curiously. Skiing is standing on a board and sliding down a snowy mountain. Xian smiled and replied, you'll feel like you're surfing. Do you remember Papa carrying us surfing? The difference is that surfing is to stand on a surfboard and follow the waves, while skiing is to stand on skis and slide down the mountain. Wow, I want to have a try. Meng was attracted by the new activity and her big eyes lit up. When we get there, Papa will take us to try it. Xian touched Meng's little head. All 3 of them were wearing thick hats and clothes, and Meng was even wrapped like a mummy. She was walking like a little penguin, wobbling and adorable. Comparatively speaking, Zhang Han wore fewer clothes than Xian, but Xian was slim and all these clothes didn't make her look fat. Papa. Hearing Xian's reply, Meng looked up at Zhang Han. Let's go. Zhang Han led the way out of the room with Meng's hand in his. Let's go. Meng cheered and waved her right hand happily, which was soon held by Xian. Wow, our snowman is so beautiful. Meng giggled when she saw the 3 snowmen on the flower bed far away. Since she found her father, the little girl knew that her father was really a big hero, just like they said in fairy tales. It's actually my first time skiing, brother-in-law. Zif said in a casual manner. It's said that we will fall many times when skiing for the first time. If I fall down later, you must help me. You. Zhang Han turned around, took a glance at Zif, thought for a while and then said, you can depend on yourself. More falls will benefit you more. Ha ha. Xian burst out laughing and then blinked her eyes in a lovely way. HMPH. Zif stamped her foot hard and said, brother-in-law. Do you still remember how I praised you in front of Sister Xian before? How can you burn the bridge after crossing it? I see right through you, bad man. What? Meng was annoyed. She looked up at Zif and pouted. That's not true. Papa is the best man. HMPH. Aunt Fei is bad, and I don't like you anymore. Well, I admit defeat. Zif immediately lost her courage. Wang Ming, Rong Jiaxin, and Leng Wall burst out laughing. Before they got in the cars, Zhao Feng and Elder Meng took out a lot of skis from the house. They had almost a complete set of ski equipment, including single boards, double boards, shoes, protective equipment, and so on. The quality of skis for rent was not very high, so Zhao Feng had specially purchased this equipment, each piece of which cost thousands or even tens of thousands of yuan. Although there was more expensive equipment, Zhao Feng specially chose the more popular skis. Though they were too rich to worry about the price, Zhang Feng didn't want to waste money, and all this equipment could still be used later. Zhao Feng knew that Zhang Han would travel the whole world with his little princess. After getting in the cars, they drove all the way to the east and soon left downtown Ice City. They were going to Yali Ski Resort, also known as Yali Ski and Holiday Resort. This resort was a national 4A level scenic spot, including 3 mountains for tourists to visit, the altitudes of which were 1,000 meters, 1,250 meters, and 1,400 meters respectively. It had always been called one of the top ski resorts in Hua Nation, and was very popular with tourists from all over the country. They arrived at the ski resort around 9 o'clock in the morning. The environment was beautiful and the sunshine made them feel warmer. But the overall temperature of this area was still very low. This area is so large. Meng looked left and right in curiosity. Let's take the cable car up the mountain first, and then we can play. Zif said excitedly. Growing up in the south, they seldom saw snow, so they often exhaled and looked at the white fog coming out of their mouth, as if they were smoking, which was very interesting. After arriving at the mountain top, they found that among all of the activities here, skiing was the most popular. Other activities included tire skating, snowmobiles, snow archery, skidways, and so on. After they changed their clothes, they all stepped on their own skis. Zhang Han thought about it, then decided to hold Meng and ski with Xian for the first run. The instructor beside them was worrying so much after seeing them. For the 5th time, he began to persuade Zhang Han. Sir, I'm still worried about you. The little girl is delicate, and what you are going to do is dangerous. What if you fall down while holding hands? Why don't you rent a ski tire for your child? Don't worry, we won't be in any danger. Zhang Han smiled. Then he thanked the keen and kind instructor. Holding Meng in his left hand and Xian in his right, Zhang Han started to glide down the ramp. They were a bit slow at first, and even Meng was a bit confused. Papa, why are we so slow? Looking at all those tourists passing them, Meng was a little worried. Let's catch up to them. Okay, I'm going to speed up. Zhang Han chuckled and turned his gaze to Xian. The slow speed was to let Xian get familiar with the rhythm of skiing and learn to keep balance. Xian nodded at Zhang Han's words. When Zhang Han was about to accelerate, woo! He heard someone cheering. Then he saw Zif, armed to the teeth, swinging her ski pole crazily and gliding forward at a high speed. She even turned around and made a face when she passed by Zhang Han. However, when she turned her head back, her smile froze. Get out of my way, I don't know how to stop or turn. Bang! A muffled sound was heard. A young man who had been skiing ahead of Zif was knocked over by her. They both slipped 6 or 7 meters to a stop. Luckily, they were not hurt, and they even greeted each other after standing up. When Zif was about to go on skiing, she heard a whoosh sound. Then she saw Xian and Zhang Han, with Meng in his arms, skiing downward at a high speed. Woo! Meng Meng said in a loud voice, "Auntie Fei, you are so slow. I'll catch up to you." Zif patted off the snow on her pants and continued to ski down. They skied all the way to the foot of the mountain to enjoy the pleasure of their high speed. It was also a sense of control, which was one of the reasons people liked this sport. Along the way, Meng Meng stayed in Zhang Han's arms and safely experienced the happiness of skiing. Seeing Zhang Han's unrestrained figure, their speed, and their ability to control the skis, the instructor behind them felt very ashamed. He couldn't help twitching the corner of his mouth. "He seems to be much stronger than me. No wonder he dared to ski in this dangerous way." After a while, Zhang Han went to the area of freestyle skiing with his family. There were ski slopes of various angles, and when they slid down from the top of the slope, they would take off first, land on the ground, and then slide forward. It was the territory of experienced skiers, but even if they were experienced, they would sometimes fall down and get hurt. The instructor tried to keep Zhang Han from doing this activity. However, then he saw Zhang Han fly into the sky, roll 360 degrees, and land in different ways. "Okay. Do whatever you like, Guru." He was shocked by Zhang Han. With such skills, this young man should be able to reach the level of national athletes. He is even better than those athletes I know. The instructor knew many skiing gurus in foreign countries. They preferred gliding down from the snow mountain with high risk. At this moment, he felt that this man was one of those amazing gurus. What he didn't know was that this young man could even fly down a snow mountain. After several skiing runs with Meng Meng and Xian, Zhang Han began to train them again. He was a good skiing partner. "Oh, how can I move? Are my legs too stiff? I feel that I can't stand stably. Why can't I slow down? What can I do? Help me, sweetheart." Xian was trying hard to ski with her own strength. Her experience just now was so wonderful that she felt clumsy without Zhang Han's help. She kept her frantic balance. When she was about to fall, Zhang Han pulled her back. In this way, after playing with Xian for one run, Zhang Han began to train Meng Meng. "Xiaoyu, please bring me a single board." Zhang Han called out to Leng Yi. After taking over the board from Leng, Zhang Han stepped on it and held Meng Meng in her arms. "Papa takes you skiing, now you can fly." Zhang Han held Meng Meng up with both hands and threw her into the air like I did. Wow! Meng Meng went up more than 1 meter and landed safely in Zhang Han's arms. Then Zhang Han's skis started to move. "Ha ha ha, we are flying." Meng Meng was facing down, with her small arms outstretched like a bird, waving them up and down. As Zhang Han slid down the snow slope, he rotated and jumped from time to time. Meng Meng's laughter was heard all the way. "What are they doing?" When the father and daughter passed by the center of the venue, a fat boy of 6 or 7 years old was shocked. Then he pulled his father, who had just come out of the snow, and asked, "Dad, I want to fly like them. Can you hold me in your arms?" When the father turned around to look at Zhang Han and Meng Meng, his expression froze. Then he replied in embarrassment, "Forget it. Do you want to be buried in the snow with your father?" While saying like this, he felt a little depressed. Is that girl's father a Superman? After doing a run with Meng Meng, Zhang Han went back to the mountain, equipped Meng Meng with the double ski, and then took his family to a gentle slope. Under the protection of Zhang Han, the mother and daughter began to play happily. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Zif was covered with snow because of countless falls, and her glasses were twisted. Zhao Feng, Rong Jiaxin, and the others also had a good time. They had a special iron pot meal for lunch in the venue's restaurant, with a mixture of chicken, potatoes, chicken wings, pork ribs, and beans in a large pot, and a circle of pancakes on the inner wall of the pot. Though they were unfamiliar with the special flavor, they liked it. They finished lunch at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They began another round of snow activity. This time, they chose some new equipment including the snow tire. They spent the whole day on the snow and felt so happy. This kind of carefree play could relieve the pressure from work and life to a great extent, so it was also the reason why more and more people liked to travel with the main purpose of relaxing their body and mind. At 4 in the afternoon, they headed home. When Zhang Han was making their dinner at Ice Bay the First, he received 3 calls from Xuanhuan, who used to be his classmate. He was eager to invite Zhang Han out for some fun. When Zhang Han was about to finish cooking, Xian came in and asked, "Would you like me and Meng Meng to accompany you later?" "Do as you like, it seems to be a birthday party of Elder Fu's girlfriend," Zhang Han replied in a casual way. "There must be many people at the party, we'd better wait for you at home." Xian thought about it and replied. Zhang Han checked the time and said, "Okay, I'll be back before Meng Meng falls asleep, about 9 o'clock. It was 7 in the afternoon, and it would take Zhang Zhan 2 hours to attend the party and chat with his classmates. Though the time was limited, it was enough for them to have a talk, and they could make an appointment at another time if they liked. When the dinner was ready, Xuanhuan called him again. "I'm at the gate of Ice Bay the First." "Okay, wait a minute," Zhang Han replied. Then he touched Meng Meng's little head and said, "Dad is going out for something, and I'll buy you some ice cream." "Okay, come back earlier, Papa." Meng Meng replied and waved her hand at Zhang Han. Meng Meng was not depressed since Xian had told her about it. While waving goodbye to Zhang Han, she was looking forward to the ice cream. After all, it was a little hot in the room. Zhang Han walked to the gate of the community and saw Xuanhuan's Toyota Highlander. Bang, bang. Xuanhuan and Chen Man got out of the car. "Brother Han." Chen Man walked hurriedly toward Zhang Han with a warm smile on his face. Chen Man had short hair and wore a thin sweater, overcoat, and polished leather shoes, and the pockmarks on his face were very distinctive. However, Chen Man soon failed to maintain his image. Whoosh! Chen Man slipped and fell to the ground. "Damn it!" Chen Man burst out laughing and hurriedly stood up. Instead of patting the snow off his coat, Chen Man rushed toward Zhang Han and hugged him. "Brother Han, I haven't seen you in so many years, but you are as handsome as before. Ha ha, I heard from Xuanhuan that you were back, but I didn't believe it. Now I'm relieved, and we must have a good time today." "Okay." Zhang Han looked up and down at him and smiled. "You've learned how to dress yourself. I remember that when you wore pants at school, you always liked to show your ankle, which was so silly. Ha ha ha, don't remind me of what I have done, so silly indeed." Chen Man scratched his head and said, "I heard that you got married. Where are your wife and daughter? I've prepared gifts for them. What about visiting them next time?" "They won't attend the birthday party today," Zhang Han replied. "Okay, what about tomorrow?" Chen Man said, "There will be many people at the party, and we can't enjoy ourselves with them around. It will be more convenient for us to hold a small party tomorrow. Brother Han, it's cold outside, and you can get in the car first. Let's have a talk on the way. Let's go." Xuanhuan checked the time and said, "We'd better hurry up, or Elder Fu will be buried by that girl's complaint once again." They all got in the car. Xuanhuan drove while Chen Man and Zhang Han sat in the back seat. The car was clean and had a light fragrance. After getting in the car, Zhang Han looked at Chen Man and asked, "Have you gotten married yet, big man?" "It's too soon for me to get married." Chen Man shook his head. Then he added, "We are just 26 or 27 years old, and it's too soon for me to get married before 30. I enjoy remaining single and happy, and Huey doesn't have a girlfriend either." Though Lao Fu found himself a girlfriend, it turns out that he sneered and stopped talking. It seemed that he disliked Elder Fu's girlfriend. While driving the car, Xuanhuan took over the subject. "After graduation, the 3 of us became all successful in business, and Elder Fu is the best among us. However, he will be in trouble." "What's the matter with him?" Zhang Han asked with curiosity. He had always known that Fu Hongshan was the slickest among them. "It's because of his girlfriend." Shan Man curled his lips. 1 year after we came back, old Fu opened a technology company and gained more than 30 million yuan in 2 years. Last year, he fell in love with a senior student at the local university, whose name was Jiang Tongdong. Then he got to know that the girl was the daughter of the Jian family, a top-class family in this city. Though Jiang Tongdong's parents disapproved of their relationship at first, they were attracted by Elder Fu's potential and agreed to marry their daughter to him in exchange for a half share of Elder Fu's company. Not long ago, there was a problem with the company's capital operation, and several of his projects failed. Now old Fu is going bankrupt, and Jiang Tongdong's family wants to deny their engagement. Old Fu spent at least 150 million yuan on the Jiang family last year. Jiang Tongdong often complains to him or even scolds him. Though they haven't split up yet, I'm afraid they won't get married. But Elder Fu still loves Jiang Tongdong, and we tried in vain to persuade him. Zhang Han was surprised at the news. As a top-class family, why doesn't the Jiang family return the share to old Fu? Though the Jiang family is powerful, Jiang Tongdong's parents are not. Xuanhuan grinned and continued. The Jiang family is so large, and not every family member is rich. Jiang Tongdong's parents are not core members, thus they asked for Elder Fu's share, but he didn't expect them to deny the engagement. All in all, it all depends on Jiang Tongdong, and we can't meddle in their affairs. But, Xuanhuan added, Jiang Tongdong is famous in the second-generation circle of influential families, and many celebrities will attend her party. It's none of our business and we can ignore them. By the way, Brother Han, how did you come out of Ice Bay the first? I heard that the Zhang family, though they knew Zhang Han was born into a really big family, they had heard about Zhang Han's tragic experience. I left my family, and now I live in Hong Kong, Zhang Han replied casually. Zhang Han was surprised by old Fu's experience, who had almost married into the Jiang family. I admire you so much, Brother Han. You can always be successful wherever you are. Chen Man grinned at Zhang Han. Zhang Han shook his head and smiled. You can come to Hong Kong with me if you want. It seemed that Zhang Han had a good relationship with them. Hong Kong. Chen Man hesitated for a while, but finally, he shook his head and replied, haha, thank you, Brother Han. If I can't survive in the future, I'll go to ask you for help. My family is here, and I can't leave them, though I really want to go outside. Xuanhuan forced a smile. Chapter 536. Troubles? I must be dreaming. Xuanhuan groaned. When he turned a corner, he met a long motorcade line and couldn't move forward anymore. Looking at another long line of cars following his own, Xuanhuan smacked the steering wheel and shouted, there are only 2 streets to go. Why is there a traffic jam here? Normally, there can't be so many cars here at this time. Maybe there is a traffic accident. Chen Man shook his head and said, there are more and more private cars nowadays, as well as stupid drivers. During the National Day holiday, when I drove from East Ring Road to the exhibition center in the West District, I saw 5 traffic accidents. It's a normal phenomenon since society is developing at high speed. Xuanhuan rubbed his hands together and said helplessly, I'm worried that if we are late, Jiang Tongdong will complain about Elder Fu once again in front of all the guests. When she did so last time, old Fu was so embarrassed. It's not as bad as you think. Chen Man curled his lips and explained to Zhang Han, sometimes their relationship seems to be good. Let's talk about something else. Brother Han, when did you get married? Why didn't you inform us about it? Well, Zhang Han thought for a while then replied, we got engaged in Singapore. We only got the marriage certificate but haven't had a wedding yet. Why not? Xuanhuan was shocked. Really? Your girl is in kindergarten now. Why haven't you held the wedding ceremony yet? It's just a ceremony. Chen Man didn't care about it. They got the marriage certificate and are a legally married couple. They can hold their wedding whenever they like. Right, Zhang Han replied. Why did you go to Singapore? Is your wife's family there? Hiss. Hui suddenly thought of something and asked in astonishment, Brother Han, have you married into her family like old Fu? Marry into her family? Zhang Han was stunned and then shook his head with a smile. Well, Brother Han, you have suffered a lot all these years. Hui believed that he had figured out the truth, because Zhang Han's wife should have come with him since it was their first time meeting again after such a long time. In Hui's opinion, Zhang Han's position in his home must have been low, since his beautiful wife didn't come with him. Each family has its own problems. Hui sighed to himself, and then smiled at Zhang Han. Let's stop talking about it and have a pleasant chat. Brother Han, you have a family now, so you can't have fun with us the whole night, can you? No, I can't, Zhang Han nodded and replied, I need to go back before 10 in the evening and accompany my daughter to go to bed. This. Both Hui and Chen Man were surprised by Zhang Han. It's a limited time for him to be away from home. He must go back to accompany his daughter. What does the girl's mother do? What's wrong with his family? Damn it, I guessed right. Brother Han, you really have suffered a lot. Hui looked at Zhang Han with pity. He was again sighing to himself. Both Hui and Chen Man suddenly quieted down. Though they wanted to comfort Zhang Han, they didn't know what to say for the time being. If Zhang Han knew what they were thinking about, he would have been amused by them. After 5 minutes, Chen Man's cell phone rang and he answered it. Hello, old Fu, we are on Liu Road and the traffic is heavy here. I've checked it out. There seems to be a traffic accident ahead. All the cars are moving slowly, and we may arrive in 15 minutes. Well, you mean Brother Han? He is here beside me. Okay. Chen Man gave his phone to Zhang Han and said with a smile, Old Fu wants to talk with you. Zhang Han took over the cell phone. Hello, Elder Fu. Then he heard Fu Hongshan's laughter. Brother Han, I haven't seen you for so many years. What a surprise that you are here. They laughed and chatted for 2 minutes before hanging up. Hui's car was still moving forward slowly. During this period, he smiled at Zhang Han and said, We are heading for Mingren International Club, known as the most luxurious entertainment landmark in Ice City. A small room that costs 1,999 yuan, the middle room 2,999 yuan. The large room 3,999 yuan, and the minimum consumption there is several thousand yuan. If we go there for fun, the total consumption must be tens of thousands of yuan. The price of a member's private room is even higher, which is favored by Jiang Tongdong and her female friends. All of those girls come from big local families, and they will definitely attract more boys and girls of the same class today. So her birthday party will be a party for those rich second-generation kids actually. According to their expression when they were talking about the rich second-generation circle, Zhang Han knew that Hui and Chen Man envied those people. They talked for 10 minutes and finally drove to the end of the street. At the end of the street, they saw that 2 cars had collided with each other, beside which stood a man and a woman, both in their 20s and looking calm. After they left the street, the road ahead was clear. Hui sped up and rushed to another street on the side. Although it was already night, street lights and signs of various shops lit up the street, and there were many pedestrians on both sides of the road. The shops on this street were more high-end than before, and Zhang Han saw several Gucci and Dior franchises. After driving for 2 minutes, Hui drove his car into the parking lot of a commercial building on the right side of the road. Above this single building was a big sign, which read Ice City Mingren International Club. The gate of the club was large and semicircular, with dozens of tall girls in cheongsams standing in 2 lines inside. When Hui took the lead to enter the club, "Welcome to Mingren International Club." All the pretty girls bowed and greeted them. For those who came here for the first time, they might feel embarrassed. But Xiaohui and Chen Man were not surprised by the girls at all, for they often came here for fun. As for Zhang Han, there was nothing in the world that could surprise him. After a few steps forward, they saw the smiling manager on duty. "Welcome, may I? We are going to room 801 for Jiang Tongtong's birthday party." Xiaohui interrupted him. The manager on duty smiled more warmly. He knew that all the guests of that private room today were either rich or high-ranking. "Okay, this way please." The manager on duty guided them to the elevator on the inner side and sent them to the 8th floor. Stepping out of the elevator, they saw a round carpeted hall and 10 tall, pretty, sexy girls welcoming them. After seeing Zhang Han and his friends, the girl on the left walked toward them. "Welcome, honored guests. Room 801 is this way." Then she walked forward gracefully, guiding them to the room. There were 8 rooms on the 8th floor. The area of each room was very large with high-quality facilities, which was specifically used for holding parties. When they saw the door of room 801, Xiaohui quickened his pace. Beside the door, Fu Hongshan was smoking while looking out of the window. "Elder Fu." Xiaohui called him. "Yes?" Fu Hongshan turned around, and his eyes immediately lit up. After throwing the cigarette in the ashtray, he rushed toward his friends. "Brother Han. Long time no see." Fu Hongshan had an oval face and looked handsome in his jacket and jeans. Otherwise, he wouldn't have attracted Jiang Tongtong, a girl from a wealthy family. "Elder Fu." Zhang Han smiled and hugged his friend. "It's been a long time since we last met. I'm so happy to see you here." Fu Hongshan smiled and invited Zhang Han. "Let's go into the room, take a seat, and have a talk." "Let's go," Xiaohui said. When they approached the room, the waiters on both sides opened the door for them. This room was very bright and large, with sofas and tea tables scattered around, in which 40 or 50 people were chatting and laughing. Among them, there were young people dressed in luxurious clothes and beautiful girls dressed in a sexy or fresh style. Fu Hongshan found that the right corner was relatively silent, so he took his friends there. On the tea table in front of the sofa, there were all kinds of snacks, fruit plates, and red wine. "Let's drink this to welcome Brother Han," Fu Hongshan said with a glass of red wine in his hand. Ding! They soon drank up a whole bottle of red wine. "I haven't seen you 3 in 6 years, right?" Zhang Han put down his glass and smiled. "Your appearance hasn't changed much, but Big Man is more confident than before." "Ha ha, thank you. I often apply a facial mask and feel that my skin is getting better," Chen Man replied with a smile. "Brother Han, you have changed a lot and looked more mature than before." Fu Hongshan looked at Zhang Han carefully. "More mature, Elder Fu? Do you mean that Brother Han is older than before? We'll punish you with another glass of wine," Xiaohui said seriously. Fu Hongshan was stunned, and then smiled at Zhang Han with a glass of wine in his hand. "Yes, I'm wrong. I'll drink up this glass of wine." After another round of drinking, they looked at one another and burst out laughing. Fu Hongshan chatted with them for 10 minutes and then stood up. "I'll call Tongtong to come here and greet Brother Han," he said, and then walked toward another area in the room. Besides those young men who were talking in the center of the room, there were many beautiful girls sitting on the sofas. Therefore, it was hard for Zhang Han to figure out who Jiang Tongtong was. But Xiaohui and Chen Man were eager to guide him. "Have you found her, Brother Han? There are 5 girls on the right side, and the one with brown hair and the purple dress is Jiang Tongtong," Xiaohui told Zhang Han. Zhang Han turned around and saw the 5 girls. In addition to Jiang Tongtong, the other 4 girls holding Louis Vuitton or Hermes bags also wore luxurious clothes, which meant their families were wealthy. The girl with the black ponytail next to her is Wu Ying from the Wu family. The Wu family is in the medicine business and has a great influence here. Wu Ying is the eldest daughter of the Wu patriarch and is very famous. Chen Man seemed to know the local rich second-generation circle well, so he kept making introductions to Zhang Han. The girl in front of Jiang Tongdong, who looks like a pretty doll, is the youngest among those girls. She is Bai Jing, Bai Pingyuan's sister. Yes, Bai Pingyuan is powerful. He is the most famous among the young generation of big families and one of the 4 young masters in Ice City. All of his subordinates have gained a lot of benefits these years, and Wai Zedong is the best among them, who also gets on well with the other young masters. After chatting with Elder Fu for a short while, Zhang Han got the information of all the influential young men present, but he always replied with icy without showing any interest in them. Though Zhang Xiaohui was confused, he smiled at Zhang Han and said, "But Brother Han is the most powerful young man in my opinion, since you can still live a good life after leaving the Zhang family." "That's right." Chen Man smiled and nodded. Zhang Han used to be the first in line to be the patriarch of the Zhang family and one of the 4 masters in Shangjing City. In terms of identity, he was more respectable than most of the young men and women in the room. These 3 friends of Zhang Han got all this information about him after he had abandoned his identity, and they didn't want to talk about big families anymore so they would not depress Zhang Han. But Zhang Han didn't care about it at all. "What's done is done, and I've already forgotten it," he said casually. "You make sense." Chen Man agreed with him. While they were talking, Fu Hongshan approached Jiang Tongdong and touched her arm. The girl turned around and frowned slightly. After Fu Hongshan said something, Jiang Tongdong stared at him angrily as if she was bothered by him. After a while, Jiang Tongdong turned around again with a smile on her face. After saying something to her friends, she followed Fu Hongshan over to Zhang Han's seat. They talked about something on the way, and Fu Hongshan couldn't keep his smile. Though he was far away from Elder Fu and his girlfriend, Zhang Han heard their conversation clearly. Jiang Tongdong said it was hard for her to invite Bai Jing and the other girls here, and she felt unhappy to be bothered by Elder Fu's friends, who came here too late. When Jiang Tongdong arrived, she managed to show Elder Fu's friends a sweet smile. "Tongdong, this handsome young man is my old friend. You can call him Brother Han." Fu Hongshan began to introduce his friends after sitting down. "Nice to meet you, Brother Han. I'm Jiang Tongdong. Hongshan mentioned you many times and I know you were good friends in university." Jiang Tongdong stretched out her hand in an elegant way. "Nice to meet you." Zhang Han smiled and shook hands with her. During this period, Jiang Tongdong kept looking at Zhang Han secretly and carefully. In her eyes, though Zhang Han was wearing famous yet not luxurious clothes, he behaved in a noble and serious way, which reminded her of her grandpa. No wonder he used to be the most promising of the young generation in Shangjing. What a pity that he is down and out now. His past glory has gone with the wind, otherwise he would have been a good supporter for Hongshan's business. Jiang Tongdong sighed to herself. After chatting for a while with Elder Fu's friends, Jiang Tongdong leaned down and whispered in her boyfriend's ear, "Bai Jing's brother is having fun with his friends upstairs. I'll go to have a talk with Bai Jing, and ask her to introduce us to her brother. It's your opportunity and you must seize it." Fu Hongshan was tired of being introduced to Jiang Tongdong's friends, who actually looked down on him, but he couldn't refuse his girlfriend. He nodded at Jiang Tongdong, and then looked at Zhang Han and said, "I'm sorry, Brother Han, it's vital for Tongdong to talk with her friends." Zhang Han slightly shook his head and replied, "Do as you please, we'll stay here chatting." Zhang Han was here to meet his old classmates, and he didn't want to mind others' business. "I'll be back to have a drink with you." Jiang Tongdong smiled and left them. Before Jiang Tongdong returned to her friends, 5 or 6 young men entered the room. They were led by Wai Zedong, a man with a long face, yellow hair, and earrings. Zhang Han took a glance at Wai Zedong. He knew that it was Wai Zedong's men who had attacked Sun Donging. Upon Wai Zedong's arrival, many young people in the room went to greet him. "Hello, child Wai." Child Y is here. Jiang Tongtong immediately turned around and smiled at Y Zedong. It's my pleasure to have you here, welcome. It's also my pleasure to attend your party. Y Zedong smiled and put his hand casually on Jiang Tongtong's shoulder. While walking forward with Jiang Tongtong, he said, it's Sister Tong's birthday party, and I must come to congratulate you. Seeing them, Fu Hongshan's face darkened. Gritting his teeth, Fu Hongshan served himself a glass of red wine. His girlfriend was now in another man's arm, and he was trying to keep himself from beating that guy. If he did something irrationally, he couldn't afford the consequences. Someone in the room had turned their gaze to Fu Hongshan and his friends, teasing them silently. Luckily, Y Zedong saw Bai Jing after walking a few steps forward. Then he changed into a serious look and walked rapidly toward the girl. Jing, what a surprise that you are here. Tong invited me. Bai Jing replied. Bai Jing's brother was Y Zedong's superior, so he had to respect this girl. Wu Ying, you are here too? You sisters always attend parties together. Y Zedong began chatting with Bai Jing's friends. The place where they stood became the focus of all the guests. That was because they were too famous. Bai Pingyun is really powerful. Fu Hongshan looked at them and finally sighed helplessly. Of course, he is one of the 4 young masters in Ice City, who represent the top-class families here. Xiaohui curled his lips. You are wrong. Chen Man laughed and said, did you forget that man? He is well known not only in Ice City, but in H province and even the whole of northeast China. He has surpassed so many promising young men, and I heard that without his help, Bai Pingyun wouldn't have gotten such a high position. Hiss. Xiaohui suddenly gulped in astonishment and put down his glass. You mean Gai Yulong? Of course. Chen Man curled his lips and continued. The Gai family in northeast China is indeed the most representative big family, and Gai Yulong is standing above most of the generations of these influential families. Y Zedong and his followers are nothing compared with Gai Yulong, and even those patriarchs have to respect him. While saying this, he took a glance at Fu Hongshan. He was actually comforting Elder Fu by mentioning Gai Yulong. Beside them, Zhang Han was attracted by Chen Man's words. Gai, northeast China, it must have something to do with Gai Xingkong's family. According to his age, Gai Yulong should be part of the grandson generation of Gai Xingkong. Gai Xingkong. Zhang Han served himself a glass of red wine and drank it down. While he was thinking about that, Jiang Tongtong walked toward them. Hongshan, come with me, I'll introduce you to Mr. Bai. Jiang Tongtong smiled. She was excited and totally ignored Fu Hongshan's friends. You can go alone, I'm tired. Fu Hongshan shook his hand at her and replied with a dull voice. What did you say? Jiang Tongtong frowned. What a rare opportunity, and you dare to refuse me. Right at this moment, the door of the room was opened again. A slightly fat man took the lead to enter the room. It was Sanpang. Beside him was Sun Donging and 2 other friends. As soon as he entered the room, Sanpang saw Y Zedong walking toward them. Damn it, why is he here? Isn't Y Zedong unwilling to attend such a lower-class party? Let's go back. Sanpang patted Sun Donging's arm. He wanted to leave the room as soon as possible. But Y Zedong had already seen them. Wow, Sanpang, you dare to come to see me? Y Zedong glared at them in surprise, and then he smiled and waved his hand at his men. The 6 men immediately surrounded Sanpang and his friends. Child Y, Sanpang's smile froze and he felt a little frightened. We are here to attend Tongtong's birthday party. I didn't expect you to be here. It seems that you don't want to see me. Y Zedong sneered. That he strode up to Sanpang. This made the other guests slightly stunned. What's going on? Has Sanpang offended Child Y before? Let's wait and see. All those who have dared to offend Child Y were severely punished. Y Zedong's supporter is Bai Pingyun, and even Sanpang's brothers are afraid of him. I'm afraid Sanpang will suffer a lot before he is able to leave the room. When everyone began discussing what had happened, Jiang Tongdong saw this and her face immediately changed. She rushed toward the door, trying to persuade Wise Zedong and protect Sanpang. After all, Sanpang was her guest. However, instead of reasoning with Sanpang, Wise Zedong stood in front of Sun Donging and stared at him. You shrimp from out of town, now that you dared to bully my men, you shall pay for it, but I didn't expect you to come to me before I caught you. Swish. Everyone surrounding them suddenly knew what had happened. It turned out that Wise Zedong had been offended by that stranger. Your men? Sun Donging tried to keep calm. They offended me first. They offended you? Wise Zedong's eyes widened. You deserved it. Sun Donging was annoyed by Wise Zedong and gritted his teeth. Don't change the subject, and you'd better be polite to me. Sun Donging's face darkened. Wow, are you talking to me, you shrimp? Wise Zedong grinned and was ready to beat Sun Donging. Sanpang took a step forward and forced a smile while saying, Child Why, he is my friend, and I hope that we can have a talk after the party. Yes, Child Why, it's Tongtong's birthday today, and we can't let her down. Jiang Tongtong stood beside Wise Zedong, trying to persuade him. Sister Tong, he bullied my men and I have to punish him since I've met him here. Otherwise, the others in Ice City will look down on me from now on. Wise Zedong had made up his mind that now that he had met Sun Donging, he had to teach the poor guy a lesson. Jiang Tongdong turned around and looked at Bai Jing worriedly. But to Jiang Tongdong's disappointment, Bai Jing was watching them while eating snacks. It seemed that she didn't want to help them at all. More and more guests sitting in the back row stood up and walked toward the door to see what had happened. They were discussing with great passion. Kneel down. Wise Zedong turned around and gave Sun Donging a fierce look. Kneel down by yourself, or I'll ask someone to break your legs and help you. Wise Zedong. Sanpang stepped forward to block Sun Donging and shouted at Wise Zedong. Sanpang, if you dare to offend me today, I'll beat you too. I must kill this guy. Do you understand? Stop. Sun Donging's face changed several times, and finally, he failed to control himself, since he had never been bullied by someone like this in Hong Kong. He looked into Wise Zedong's eyes and said, We all know what happened, and I admit that you are more powerful than me. As for your men, I'll give you a gratifying answer tomorrow, okay? Sun Donging planned to deal with this affair by himself with money and prevent his boss from worrying about him, but he didn't know that Zhang Han was sitting in the corner and watching him, whose eyes were filled with some complicated emotions. Gratifying answer, you? Wise Zedong sneered. His expression made Sun Donging uncomfortable, who managed to keep calm and reply, If I hadn't promised my father not to get my boss into trouble, I would have taught you a lesson, but before he finished speaking, Sun Donging heard someone's voice coming from his side, and his face immediately changed. How familiar that voice is. It sounds like the owner of that voice looks down upon everyone. They are not troubles at all. Chapter 537, The Arrival of Child Bai. The whole room heard the voice. All the guests fell silent. They were stunned. They are not troubles at all? Who is it? Who dares to say that? Doesn't he want to live? They all saw Wise Zedong's expression, and they knew that Sun Donging had already lost the last chance to negotiate with him. Swish, swish, swish. Everyone in the room began searching for the owner of that voice. They wondered who dared to provoke Wise Zedong. Bai Jing was the only one present in a higher position than Wise Zedong. Even Wise Zedong was surprised when he heard the voice. He was soon filled with anger. His face darkened as his eyes ran down the room. Who is it? Everyone was looking around in confusion. After a few seconds, finally, they found someone unusual. In the corner on the right side of the room, there were 4 young men, and most of the guests were familiar with 3 of them. The one sitting on the edge was Jiang Tongdong's boyfriend, Fu Hongshan, a man of ability but who had never had a chance. The two men sitting face to face with Fu Hongxuan were his friends, Chen Man and Xiaohui. They were all non-entities, but all the dozens of guests standing around Fu Hongxuan's sofa were still looking at them. Their focus was on the fourth man, whom they had never seen before. Right at this moment, they knew that it was one of Fu Hongxuan's friends who had provoked Child Y just now. They tried to find that man according to Fu Hongxuan's and his friend's facial expressions. Fu Hongxuan, Chen Man, and Xiaohui were all sitting still with pale faces and dodging eyes, and they were also looking at the fourth man. It was worth mentioning that the fourth man still remained calm. Child Y, he was the one who just spoke. Suddenly, on a sofa 10 meters away from Zhang Han, a man stood up. It was astonishing, and all the guests' faces changed. Especially Chen Man, Fu Hongxuan, and Xiaohui, who looked ghastly pale. Brother Han, why did you say that? What can we do now? Can we escape from here? Xiaohui whispered, his hands still shaking. He was frightened by Wei Zedong's fierce look. How can we escape from here? His men have blocked all the ways out, Xiaohui added anxiously. Chen Man, who was calmer than his friends, looked around, gritted his teeth, and said fiercely, "Damn it, Xiaohui, Hongshan, do you dare to fight against them with me? There are just 10 of them and we may be able to break through them, then we can follow Brother Han to Hong Kong. Don't be impulsive, I'll go ask Tong Dong for help." Fu Hongshan's face changed. Then he added in a low voice before standing up, "If it doesn't work, I'll do as Big Man said." Then he rushed to Jiang Tongtong's side. Zhang Han was surprised by his friend's attitude. Finding that Chen Man had secretly grabbed 2 wine bottles as weapons, Zhang Han chuckled and comforted him. "Don't worry, take a rest and let me deal with them." Then he was silent, as if thinking about something. Even if Zhang Han didn't say anything, everyone present had turned their gaze to him. Jiang Tongtong almost lost her balance when she saw Zhang Han. What is he doing? Why did he say that? Why did Hongshan make friends with someone like him? While complaining about Fu Hongshan silently, Jiang Tongtong saw her boyfriend and followed him to the other side of the room. They whispered and decided to call for Jiang Tongtong's brother. Zhang Han saw what they were doing. It was surprising that Jiang Tongtong was willing to help Fu Hongshan and his friends. It seemed that although this girl always complained about Fu Hongshan's business, just as Big Man and Huey had told Zhang Han, she still loved her boyfriend. However, she came from a big family and sometimes couldn't decide her own destiny. Bai Jing, who was standing behind the crowd, stopped eating snacks to look at Zhang Han with interest. She was young and curious about everything. He looks so calm, and thus he may be either a fool or an influential person with great power. Where does he come from? Well, he is sitting with Jiang Tongtong's boyfriend, so perhaps he is a friend of Fu Hongshan. Now that he is not native, maybe he is just a shrimp who doesn't know how powerful the local families are? Wu Ying, who was standing nearby, took a glance at Zhang Han and then leaned toward Bai Jing to whisper in her ear, "That man is pretty handsome, but Wei Zedong is going to make his face swollen." Ha ha ha. Bai Jing burst out laughing with one hand covering her mouth. The other guests present were also discussing Zhang Han now. The last one who dared to provoke Child Y had to stay in the hospital for 3 months. Now that this man dares to do so, isn't he afraid of being killed? Wei Zedong's supporter is Child Bai, and thus no one dares to offend him. This impolite guy must be beaten to a pulp. Look, Child Y is walking toward him. As Wei Zedong took the first step, the whole room fell into silence again. All the onlookers gradually grew nervous. With a darkened face, Wei Zedong strode toward the right corner. While 4 of Wei Zedong's men were following him, the rest of the bodyguards were all standing at the door to block Sun Dongying's way. But Sun Dongying didn't want to escape at all. "Boss!" Sun Dongying murmured in excitement and then rushed over to Zhang Han. "Boss, Sun Dongying's boss, hiss." Sanpang almost bit his tongue, then he began to look at Zhang Han in astonishment. Damn it, is he the boss who Sun Donging always mentions, that amazing boss? No wonder he dared to provoke Wai Zedong. Wow, maybe Wai Zedong will meet his Waterloo today. Sanpang's eyes lit up with excitement. Without hesitation, he followed Sun Donging to meet Zhang Han. According to what he had seen in Sun Donging's live streaming room, Zhang Han had his own company and helicopters, and a mansion area that covered a whole mountain at New Moon Bay in Hong Kong. He must be so rich. He may be even more powerful than the Wai family. How can Wai Zedong suppress him? But, we can't let Donging's boss fight alone. Let's go help him, Sanpang said to his two friends, and then they rushed over to Zhang Han. Both sides took action quickly. Wai Zedong soon arrived at Zhang Han's side and looked at him indifferently. You said those words, didn't you? At this moment, Chen Man and Xuanhuan were even more nervous. Though they were determined to fight against Wai Zedong, they couldn't help feeling frightened. The cold sweat on their foreheads flowed down their faces. Wai Zedong was amused by them. He ignored the two cowards and looked into Zhang Han's calm eyes. Zhang Han put his glass of red wine on the tea table. Then he leaned back on the sofa, put his right leg over his left leg, looked at Wai Zedong, and calmly replied, "Yes. Don't you know who I am?" Wai Zedong's face darkened. He was ready to give orders to his men. I haven't been provoked in 2 years. Have they forgotten how powerful I am? Why would such a shrimp dare offend me? Under the gazes of Wai Zedong, Bai Jing, Wu Ying, and every guest, Zhang Han remained calm, as if he was not interested in Wai Zedong at all. He seemed to be quietly expounding a fact as he said, I know you. You damaged my snowmen last night and bullied my man today. So I'm going to punish you along with your supporters. What do you think about that? What did you say? Wai Zedong at him and asked. He thought he had heard it wrong. As Zhang Han replied, all the people on the scene were shocked. Is he crazy? Even Chen Man, Xuanhuan, and Fu Hongshan, who supported Zhang Han, were confused by him. What did he say? My gosh! When his friends were all stunned, Zhang Han shook his hand as if he didn't want to defend himself. Donging. Yes. Knowing what Zhang Han was going to do, Sun Donging replied in excitement, picked up a red wine bottle, walked toward Wai Zedong and raised his arm. Is he going to take action before Wai Zedong? Under everyone's gaze, the wine bottle flashed toward Wai Zedong and became larger and larger in his eyes. I want to move. Why can't I dodge it? Wai Zedong found himself unable to move, as if he was scared silly by the stranger. Bang! A dull noise came from Wai Zedong's head. Wai Zedong felt pain in his head and then numbness. He did not know whether it was wine or blood that flowed down from his head. Double or nothing. Sun Donging picked up 4 more bottles and smashed them at Wai Zedong's men. Dare you bully me again? Why aren't you arrogant now? Don't you know that I planned to put up with you? Why didn't you seize that opportunity? Now my boss is here, and you can bark at me again. Sun Donging pointed at Wai Zedong's nose and scolded him. Wai Zedong's expression froze. When he was about to say something, he again heard Zhang Han's calm voice. Kneel down. Swish. Wai Zedong and his men felt an irresistible force, like a mountain, pressing them to the ground. Bang! He kneeled down on the ground. Wai Zedong's face turned pale as he looked at Zhang Han, as if he didn't believe what had happened. How? Not only Wai Zedong, but also everyone present was shocked. Bai Jing's hand paused with snacks in it. She dared not blink her eyes. It surprised her that Wai Zedong was beaten without warning. This. Fu Hongshan was stunned. Then he looked at Jiang Tongdong and said, I'm sorry for ruining your birthday party, but I have to do something in return for Brother Han's help all those years. Perhaps I'll leave Ice City with my friends. Then he stepped forward, getting ready to fight for Zhang Han. Jiang Tongdong stopped him anxiously and whispered, Don't do that. I'll call my brother and he can deal with it as long as Child Bai doesn't know about it. Fu Hongxian stopped to look at his girlfriend in surprise, then he nodded and said with a smile, "Thank you." At this moment, he understood that his love for Jiang Tongdong was worth it. However, when Jiang Tongdong finished talking with her brother, Zhang Han checked the time and then turned his gaze to Wei Zedong. "You refuse to obey me, right? You have half an hour to call for your supporter," he said indifferently. Upon hearing Zhang Han's words, many people were stunned again. What did he say just now? Wei Zedong's supporter? He wants to challenge Bai Pingyuan? Really? Bai Pingyuan is the eldest son, representative, and even the patriarch candidate of the Bai family. How dare he challenge Bai Pingyuan? Everyone was confused by Zhang Han and didn't believe his courage. The powerful image of Bai Pingyuan had been deeply rooted in their minds, and they didn't believe that anyone else, except for the other three young masters in Ice City, would dare to challenge Bai Pingyuan. Yes, Gai Yulong is not afraid of Bai Pingyuan, either, but Gai Yulong is the supporter of Bai Pingyuan. Hearing Zhang Han's words, Bai Jing frowned slightly. "It's brave of him to challenge my brother, but he is still a reckless man." At the same time, Chen Man and Xiaohui were again stunned by Zhang Han's words. Fu Hongxian felt a headache, while covering his forehead with one hand. He thought anxiously, "If they call for Bai Pingyuan, we'll be done." Jiang Tongdong, who had just hung up the phone, felt nervous. "I've turned to my brother for help. Why did you mention his supporter? My brother can't save you in front of Bai Pingyuan." On the other side, Wei Zedong gnashed his teeth in anger and asked, "You dare to do that? Stop talking nonsense." Sun Donging stretched out his leg and kicked Wei Zedong down without hesitation. Sun Donging was so angry just now and he wouldn't give up such a good chance. But he was not satisfied with just kicking them or smashing a bottle at them. "Damn it, if Brother Feng were here, he would beat you half dead." Sun Donging stared at Wei Zedong and his men. Sanpang and his friends were already stunned. While standing behind Sun Donging, they looked at each other in confusion. How powerful is Donging's boss? There was again dead silence in the room. Wei Zedong looked around fiercely, and then made a phone call in a low voice. At this moment, all the guests knew that something terrible would happen. "He is calling for Child Bai, right? I guess so. Child Bai will definitely suppress all those guys, and they will be in trouble. Does he still have the courage to challenge Child Bai? They could do nothing but shake their heads silently and guess what would happen. They all believed that Child Bai would soon turn the tables. Even Chen Man and Xiaohui felt that they couldn't stay here any longer. "Brother Han, shall we just wait and see?" Zhang Han smiled and sat still. "This." Chen Man and Xiaohui looked at each other and sighed helplessly. "Just let it be." Jiang Tongdong approached Bai Jing with Fu Hongxian. "Elder sister Jing, could you please?" Though Jiang Tongdong was older than Bai Jing, she had to respect Bai Jing and call her elder sister. However, before Jiang Tongdong could finish speaking, Bai Jing shook her head and said, "My brother is upstairs with several friends, and he will definitely come down after hearing about it. This time, I can't help you. Did you see that Child Wai's head was broken? I can't stop my brother from avenging him." Jiang Tongdong's face turned pale. "What can I do?" She was at a loss. Right at this moment, the door of the room was opened again. Two of Wei Zedong's men who stood at the door with a nervous look were cheered up immediately and said in a loud voice, "Child Wei." Swish, swish, swish. Everyone present looked in their direction. They saw 15 or 16 men come in, and the leader was Bai Pingyuan in a black leisure suit. Then they saw the man beside Bai Pingyuan. They all gasped in fear. "Look, Child Tenming is here, my gosh, here are two of the 4 young masters in Ice City. The other men following them are also powerful in Ice City. A great disaster is coming. Now that those poor guys hurt Child Wei, they must pay for it." Now everyone was looking at Zhang Han with pity. They even began mourning for Zhang Han. Yo! After entering the room, Ming looked around and smiled with enthusiasm when he saw several men kneeling on the ground, including Wise Dong. It was none of his business and he was willing to be an onlooker. Bai Pingyuan frowned slightly and walked toward Wise Dong. Behind him were 5 well-trained men, apparently his bodyguards. As they arrived, the temperature in the room seemed to have dropped. It was a little cold. Even Sanpang shrank his neck in fear. The real guru is here, and I hope that Donging's boss can survive. As for Sun Donging, who was standing near a tea table with a wine bottle in his hand, he was not afraid of the newcomers at all. "You are done, he is here, what can we do?" Jiang Tongtong almost burst into tears in fear. She knew that her brother was useless this time. Under everyone's gaze, Bai Pingyuan went over to Wise Dong. Though he was unhappy, he remained calm. A man who had thunder in his chest yet could keep a calm expression like the surface of a lake could be a general. Bai Pingyuan was this kind of man, who didn't like to show his feelings. As one of the 4 young masters in Ice City, he was very capable. But he was not a magnanimous person. He waved to the followers behind him, beckoning them to carry Wise Dong and his men away, and then asked, "Who did this?" The indoor temperature seemed to have dropped a lot again. Turning around to look at Zhang Han, Sun Donging found his boss still in silence, which amused him. "All these guys are not worth my boss's words. What would Brother Feng do if he was here? He must punish all these guys together." Sun Donging hesitated for a while and saw someone was about to help Wise Dong up. "Stop!" he shouted. "You beat them." Bai Pingyuan saw Sun Donging and the bottle in his hand. When he spoke, he waved again, and 3 of his men immediately went to surround Sun Donging. What a reckless guy. Ming felt bored and sighed. "I expected to see someone with an amazing background. It's so boring, child Bai, just take them away." "Okay," Bai Pingyuan said indifferently. When Bai Pingyuan was about to order his men, Sun Donging turned his gaze to Zhang Han. "It's me who had him do so," Zhang Han said. "You?" Bai Pingyuan looked at Zhang Han and sneered, "Don't you know I'm his supporter? Is there any difference?" Zhang Han replied casually. Bai Pingyuan was surprised and burst out laughing. "Yes, there is no difference since you did that." Hiss. Many guests gasped in fear because of Bai Pingyuan's words. He is going to take action. Chapter 538, The Big Family's Failure. "Come with me," Bai Pingyuan said. Zhang Han totally ignored Bai Pingyuan's words and didn't look at him at all. "Okay." 3 seconds later, Bai Pingyuan nodded and looked into Zhang Han's eyes. "I can make it clearer, I won't let you leave the club." Then Bai Pingyuan turned around and was about to leave. Instead of punishing these guys immediately, he preferred to deal with them later with his own means. However, the moment he turned around, "Did I let you go?" he heard Zhang Han's calm voice again. It was so astonishing and, if they hadn't seen Bai Pingyuan's darkened face, everyone would have felt as if they were dreaming. A dream? It might be possible at other moments, but not now. Bai Pingyuan slowly turned around and looked at Zhang Han. There was no expression on his face. Even Tan Ming was surprised. Where did this brave guy come from? Bai Pingyuan was thinking the same thing. In spite of what had happened before, Bai Pingyuan was surprised by Zhang Han's reaction and wondered who he was. He had never seen anyone like Zhang Han in Ice City before. Is he pretending to be calm? Bai Pingyuan managed to convince himself. So he said in a low voice, "Tell me your name since you are so calm." At this moment, Zhang Han picked up a glass of red wine, took a sip, and casually played with it in his right hand. Then he raised his head. Looking into Bai Pingyuan's eyes, he said slowly, "You don't deserve to know my name. You have affected my reunion with my friends. What should I do to punish you?" "How will I punish you since you dare to act this way in front of me?" While warning Bai Pingyuan, Zhang Han took a glance at Sun Donging. "Yes?" Sun Donging understood it and raised the bottle in his hand. Then he smashed the bottle at Bai Pingyuan's head. What is going on? Will he beat Bai Pingyuan? Hiss. Everyone present widened their eyes. Is this real? They were all at a loss. Bang! With a dull sound, Bai Pingyuan swayed and fell to the ground. He covered his head in pain. Looking at Bai Pingyuan's bodyguards, who dared not move, Sun Donging smashed the bottle at them in the same way. After beating all these men to the ground, Sun Donging's arm felt a little sore. He hesitated for a while, and then took out his cell phone to ask Zhao Feng for help. I can't manage all this. I'm a little tired, and my legs are numb. What tiring work. When can I be as powerful as Brother Feng? When one of the men fell down, he happened to hit Wei Zedong's head. Ah! Wei Zedong, who had fainted in pain, was woken up by the hit. When he was about to scold that man, he saw what had happened and was stunned. Child Bai, are you okay? Wei Zedong's face changed in astonishment, and he forgot the pain in his head. Then he saw Sun Donging and his wine bottle. He was shocked by that fact. Child Bai was beaten by him. How could Child Bai be beaten by him? Wei Zedong's pupils shrank as he felt that it was inconceivable. Right at this moment, Bai Pingyuan covered his head with his right hand, stood up slowly, and then looked at Zhang Han with red eyes. You! Bai Pingyuan said in a low and slow voice as he looked at Zhang Han fiercely. Brave, you are brave. Ha! Tanming grinned at Zhang Han, who gave you the courage to hurt Child Bai. Tanming's followers were all staring at Zhang Han. The man on the sofa was already dead in their eyes. For how many years has Bai Pingyuan not been offended? Ha ha, ha ha. Bai Pingyuan burst out laughing and then said to Zhang Han fiercely, Bai Pingyuan, kneel down. Before Bai Pingyuan could finish speaking, Zhang Han suddenly stretched his right hand forward. Buzz, buzz, buzz. All of Bai Pingyuan, Tanming, and their rich second-generation followers felt their knees go soft, and then they were forced to kneel. He is a martial artist. Bai Pingyuan's and Tanming's faces changed. At this time, they realized that the man who had been sitting on the sofa all this time was a martial artist. Although it was not uncommon to meet martial artists, they all knew that few martial artists could influence others from a distance. They suddenly knew the identity of the young man in front of them. He is a martial arts grandmaster. Bai Pingyuan and Tanming suddenly lost their courage. Though they were not afraid of challenging a martial arts grandmaster, they didn't want to provoke a martial arts grandmaster who went all out. If Zhang Han got annoyed with them, he might kill them without thinking about the consequences. It was so scary. But they couldn't bear the humiliation of being forced to kneel. When they all fell into silence, all the onlookers in the room widened their eyes. They were astonished by Zhang Han. How dare he offend my brother? Why is he still sitting there calmly? Bai Jing clenched her fist in anger. As one of the 4 young masters in Ice City, her brother was better than most people. How is he suppressed by that guy? These people who were standing around couldn't imagine the pressure on Bai Pingyuan and his fellows, and couldn't understand why those arrogant young men knelt on the ground, but none of them guessed that Zhang Han was a martial artist. Bai Jing, who was outraged, took out her cell phone secretly and clicked open WeChat. Uncle, my brother has been beaten by someone. We are in the Mingren International Club, room 801. Many other people felt dizzy under the impact of this scene. Oh, my gosh. Jiang Tongdong was trembling and didn't know what to say at the moment. I. Fu Hongshan murmured in fear. Brother Han is going to shock all of Ice City. 2 of the 4 young masters in Ice City are kneeling here. They will not take their defeat lying down. They all represent the young generation of their families, just as most of the guests expected. Tanming couldn't bear the feeling of shame and anger anymore. He slowly raised his head, looked at Zhang Han, and threatened him. Do you know what you are doing? I admit that you are powerful. But, Tanming's tone became ferocious. Bai Pingyuan, all our followers and our families. Do you know what this means? Do you want to be the enemy of all the powerful families in Ice City? Zhang Han couldn't help laughing. Then he took a glance at Tanming and said without any emotion, Are you shrimps the representatives of Ice City? Aren't you afraid of our families? Okay. Do you know who his supporter is? Tanming pointed at Bai Pingyuan and said slowly. His supporter is Gai Yulong. He is also in your martial artist circle. It's impossible that you don't know the Gai family of Northeast China. You'd better stop talking nonsense. Zhang Han shook his hand to stop Tanming. Pa. With a loud noise, Tanming's whole right face was beaten bloody. He didn't realize what had happened and looked at Zhang Han in a daze. Is he really that kind of martial artist who doesn't care about the consequence at all? Time is limited. You have half an hour to contact someone. Zhang Han checked the time and said. He was not interested in talking nonsense with these guys. Their status was too low. That man provoked them again. The crowd was again in an uproar, upon seeing that Zhang Han had injured Tanming's face after shaking his hand. Bai Jing and Wu Ying couldn't help stepping back in fear. They looked at Zhang Han seriously. Bai Jing again took out her cell phone. Third uncle, my brother was beaten by someone who seems to be a martial arts grandmaster. Please come here to save him. We are in the Mingren International Club, room 801. Bai Pingyuan also took out his cell phone to find someone's number. After sending out a message, he took a glance at Zhang Han and said slowly, I hope that you can still remain calm when brother Yulong comes here. Why isn't he frightened? Bai Pingyuan found that Zhang Han's attitude didn't change at all. But Zhang Han didn't punish Bai Pingyuan like he had done to Tanming, either. In fact, he was thinking about Bai Pingyuan's words calmly. It was not nonsense. As for the other rich second-generation kids of powerful families, they all began to call someone for help after hearing Zhang Han's words. They were still kneeling on the ground. Maybe it was the comfort over the phone that made them come back to life, and they all straightened their body and threatened Zhang Han with their expressions. Though they had nothing to do with it, the other guests all gasped in astonishment. The actions of these two young masters will definitely wake up more than half of the upper-class families in Ice City. Who the hell is he? Is he trying to suppress all those families? They all realized that today they were going to witness a big event. Zhang Han ignored all those guys calling for help near the tea table, and turned his gaze to the right side, where Fu Hongshan was. Then Zhang Han waved his hand at Fu Hongshan and said clearly, Elder Fu, come here to sit with me. Fu Hongshan smiled, rubbed his hands together, and walked toward Zhang Han. At this point, he decided to let it go. There was no use to worry about Zhang Han since he had done all the forbidden things. Besides, Fu Hongshan remembered that brother Zhang had never done anything recklessly, and he hoped that Zhang Han could still obey this principle. Jiang Tongdong, who stood behind Fu Hongshan, hesitated for 2 seconds and finally decided to follow her boyfriend. Jiang Tongdong knew that many people would hate her for it, but she was in a daze and couldn't help doing so. Her subconscious action won a little favor of Zhang Han. The little girl may not have a good temperament, but she is kind. Brother Han, we are now in the SHT together. Fu Hongshan sat down and smiled at Zhang Han. Now he was like an aged hero waiting for his doomed failure. Finding that Jiang Tongdong was still following him, Fu Hongshan grasped her hand gently. Sun Donging went over to Zhang Han, sat down, and said in a low voice, Ha ha, boss, I informed Brother Feng, my arms are sore, and I can't deal with so many guys. It seemed that he was not nervous at all. I see. Zhang Han nodded and proposed a toast to Jiang Tongdong. Happy birthday, I owe you a gift, and later I'll compensate you with a special one. Zhang Han chuckled. Well, it doesn't matter. Jiang Tongdong's face blushed. She didn't know what to do, and finally took up a glass of red wine with Fu Hongshan's help. All right, let's forget it for the moment and make a toast. Chen Man sighed and took up another glass of red wine. This time, everyone familiar with Zhang Han raised their glasses, including Sun Donging. Seeing the worries in the others' eyes, Sun Donging laughed and said in a loud voice, Don't worry, my boss will catch all those shrimps in one draft. Swish. Sun Dongying's words made many people hate him even more. Ding! Zhang Han and his friends drank all the wine in their glasses. Looking at their behavior, the crowd around them was stunned. Damn it, how could they make a toast here? They are so brave. Right at this moment, bang! The door of the room was pushed open, and a male figure came in quickly. At the same time, he said in a loud voice, "Sister Tong, who ruined your party? Who is that guy?" The man who had hurried in was Jiang Tongtong's brother. He looked at these people kneeling on the ground, and finally stopped his gaze at Bai Pingyuan and Tanming. "Well, I'm sorry, I went to the wrong room." Then the man ran out of the room at a higher speed. The next moment, the room door opened again. This time, it wasn't Jiang Tongtong's brother who came in, but Zhao Feng and 5 of his men. When they came in, they glanced around with no emotion and then went to Zhang Han's side. "Boss." They made an obeisance and then stopped in front of the tea table after Zhang Han nodded his head. They were as calm as Zhang Han. It surprised all the guests in the room. That reckless stranger seems to be also powerful. But, can he survive the siege of so many forces? Some of the onlookers began sneering. 5 minutes later, the door was opened once again. A group of men in black suits rushed into the room. In the middle of them stood a red-haired man in his 30s, dressed in a coat. He is Li Sanyong of the Southern District, Li Qi's brother, a talent in the young generation of the Li family. Li Sanyong brought his men with him personally. They must have a big fight. At this time, Li Qi, kneeling not far behind Tanming, couldn't get up, but he turned his head and shouted with all his strength, "Brother, it's them." Upon seeing Li Qi, Li Sanyong's face changed. Then he strode over to Zhang Han with a serious expression on his face. However, he was blocked by Zhao Feng, who said in a cold tone, "Go over there and squat down." Zhao Feng pointed at those guys kneeling on the ground. "I'm not used to talking to other people's dogs," Li Sanyong said. But he was interrupted by Zhao Feng, who kicked his right leg in the air. Crack! Ah! Li Sanyong's legs were suddenly bent, and he fell to the ground. All his followers turned pale and reached for the weapons behind them. Zhao Feng and Elder Meng rushed at the group like tigers at sheep. Clatter, clatter, clatter. A crisp sound came out, and the group of thugs all fell to the ground, fearing that those guys' screams would disturb the boss. Zhao Feng and Elder Meng walked over and kicked them unconscious. This scene made Tanming's and Bai Pingyuan's pupils contract violently. There was a big wave in their mind. They. Who the hell are they? The room fell into a dead silence. No one dared to speak at this moment, but their minds were not calm. What a frightful group of people this is. Their resolute and ruthless manner was like a mountain on others, almost suffocating them. Bang! The door was opened once again. 5 people came in, led by a short-haired man. It's Brother Wang. However, Brother Wang's face changed greatly when he saw what had happened in the room, as well as his young brother, who was shaking head at him. He couldn't step forward anymore. In fact, he didn't need his young brother's warning. Even Bai Pingyuan and Tanming were kneeling there. How could he dare to speak? "Go there and squat down," Zhao Feng ordered him in a calm voice. These newcomers complied with Zhao Feng's orders. Another 20 minutes soon passed. During this time, many people in the room stepped back, because these newcomers were squatting in that area. The eldest son of the Wu family of the East District, the heir of the Ma family on Kixing Road, Garan's uncle from the Xuanhuan District, north of the river, patriarch of the Songnan District. All the people they had to respect were now squatting on the ground. Too many people are stunned. So was Jiang Tongdong. She sat uneasily on the sofa. She didn't understand how it all happened. The reactions of Chen Man, Zixiao Hui, and Fu Hongshan were no better than the girls. Who could have imagined that in just 20 minutes, all the supporters coming to help these people would be defeated? That man is so powerful that he can really suppress so many upper-class families. However, the really powerful masters are coming. Each of them has the ability to turn Ice City upside down. Bai Feng, child Bai's uncle, is coming. Suddenly, there was a buzz in the crowd. 3 men came in from the door of the room. The leading bald man was Bai Feng, followed by 2 fierce-looking bodyguards, who were also martial artists. Bai Feng was also surprised by what he saw and narrowed his eyes slightly. Before he came here, Bai Feng didn't believe that Bai Pingyuan was beaten, but now he found that the situation here was very complicated. He took a few steps forward, and his face was serious. According to the chi of Bai Feng's 2 bodyguards, Zhao Feng knew they were his equal match in strength, so he decided to wait for his master's command. Stand up. Bai Feng looked at Bai Pingyuan angrily. I can't do that. Bai Pingyuan tried to stand up, but he could not move at all. A man behind Bai Feng frowned and put his hand on Bai Pingyuan's shoulder. But the next moment, his face turned pale and then red in shock, and then his hand shrank back like lightning. When he was about to say something, bang! The door was opened once more. An aged man in his 50s came in. Bai Zhenhong, the 3rd uncle of the Bai family. Hiss, how could he come in person? According to his temper, I'm afraid he's going to kill someone. Many people present were frightened. A few of them knew that Bai Zhenhong was a martial artist at Grandmaster middle stage, who was famous for his vicious way of doing things. Though he was well known in Ice City, the prestige he had now was bought by countless lives. Just as most of the guests expected, Bai Zhenhong's face darkened after he looked around the room. Pingyuan. It took Bai Zhenhong only 5 steps to approach Bai Pingyuan and Bai Feng. Who made you kneel here? Bai Zhenhong asked while releasing his frightening chi. He grabbed Bai Pingyuan's arm, and then Bai Pingyuan felt the weight on his back greatly reduce. Tell me who he is, and I'll kill all of his family and friends. Bai Zhenhong said Bai Pingyuan in anger. In Bai Zhenhong's eyes, his desire to kill Zhang Han could be seen clearly. He didn't care about Bai Pingyuan or others of the young generation in the Bai family. But he tried to cultivate through violence and even killing, which was an extreme way but highly praised by some cultivators. Bai Pingyuan didn't know whether to be happy or frightened when he saw Bai Zhenhong. The only thing he knew was that, it's getting big. Bai Jing, standing beside them, shook her head and looked at Zhang Han like he was a dead man. She was murmuring to herself, I'm sorry, but you asked for it. If you hadn't beaten my brother, I would not have called my uncle. At the same time, Wu Ying and the other second-generation kids of upper-class families all changed their faces when they saw the 3rd uncle of the Bai family. They knew that Bai Zhenhong was crazy. Though everyone in Ice City was afraid of the Bai family, when they had no choice, they would rather offend Patriarch Bai than Bai Zhenhong. It was enough to show the special status of Bai Zhenhong in Ice City. However, it was me. Before Bai Pingyuan could answer his uncle, Zhang Han said while looking at Bai Zhenhong. Bai Zhenhong's face became gloomy as he activated all his inner spiritual force to prepare to attack Zhang Han. Before he made the move, he asked slowly, who are you? You don't have to know. As Zhang Han shook his head, there was a green light flashing in his eyes. Then the overwhelming spiritual energy turned into a sharp invisible sword, which was irresistibly stabbed into Bai Zhenhong's mind. Bai Zhenhong was killed. Chapter 539, It's him. As Zhang Han expected, now he had 2,000 clouds above his soul sense C, and his spiritual strength was more than twice as powerful as that of the innateness cultivators who had 99 clouds. With the help of his soul sense, Zhang Han could kill any Grandmaster middle stage martial artist without making a move. Zoom. All of a sudden, an invisible and extremely thin light wave spread around Bai Zhenhong's body, and then his eyes stared, but his breathing was still stable. But the light in his eyes slowly dissipated. From indignation and rage to the extinction of his soul, the color in Bai Zhenhong's eyes finally faded. Woo. Bai Zhenhong breathed out his last breath, and then stood in the same place like a deflated ball. unable to make any sound again. Hiss. The two martial artists behind Bai Feng changed their faces when they saw it. They trembled in disbelief and retreated. How is this possible? When looking at Zhang Han again, their eyes were full of fear, because they clearly knew that Bai Zhenhong had been killed by him. Uncle. Bai Pingyun shook his head, and still felt a burning pain in his wound. When he saw his third uncle standing there still with eyes narrowed, he called out in a hurry. Bai Zhenhong was breathless and would never reply to him. How is this possible? The crowd around was also confused and began to whisper. What is Third Lord Bai doing? Just now, he was very aggressive and wanted to kill that stranger. Why is he standing there still? Is he gathering strength or preparing for something? It's weird. Bai Jing narrowed her eyes in confusion. According to my uncle's temper, it's impossible for him to endure man for such a long time. Are they fighting in a way we can't see? It was very clear to her that a fight between martial artists was very dangerous, and even sometimes their moves were invisible to the naked eye. She didn't know that Bai Zhenhong was dead. At this moment, only Zhang Han and his friends were sitting on the sofa. But Jiang Tongdong, Fu Hongshan, Chen Man, and Xiaohui were all stunned, feeling like they were dreaming. This was not because of their poor psychological endurance, but because the things in front of them were too far beyond their imagination. Any ordinary person would be scared at this time. Even Bai Pingyun was a little confused. Bai Feng frowned slightly and reached out to touch Bai Zhenhong's arm. Just when he reached Bai Zhenhong, Bai Zhenhong's straight body fell back stiffly. Bang! There was a dull, crisp sound. Now, Bai Zhenhong looked like a zombie because there was still a violent spiritual force in his body. Upon seeing this, all the onlookers were shocked. Uncle! Bai Pingyun shouted. His face turned green and then red, and his eyes were wide open along with his mouth. What he saw was so shocking that he forgot the physical pain just like Zedong. He quickly squatted down and grasped Bai Zhenhong's arm with both hands, only to find that his uncle's arm was as stiff as a stone. In addition to rigidity, it was cold, that kind of biting cold. Bai Zhenhong lost his breath and heartbeat, and Bai Feng could not even open his eyelids. Uncle, uncle. Bai Feng's body swayed and there was a look of disbelief on his face. Is he dead? Everyone was asking themselves. After 2 seconds of careful observation, he is dead. Swish, swish, swish. All the onlookers in the surrounding area stepped back orderly, and all of them crowded into the corner in the distance. Is Bai Zhenhong dead? How is it possible? How did he die? How? Third uncle, Bai Jing's face was pale when she suddenly saw Zhang Han, and then her heart convulsed. He. She seemed to have guessed something. At the same time, she remembered the condition of the other two martial artists just now. She quickly backed away and looked at the man in horror. What did that mean? The answer was obvious. Someone died. Oh my God. The third master of the Bai family died. Wu Ying's arm quivered. Third Lord Bai is dead, and the whole Bai family, they will be furious. Can this stranger resist the Bai family's revenge? Thinking about this, she took a glance at Jiang Tongdong's side, and finally her eyes were fixed on Zhang Han, who had never changed his facial expression. How could that be? Who is he? How could he do that? He's so young, it's impossible. On the other side, Tan Ming, who was kneeling on the ground, lowered his head deeply and seemed to be roaring in his mind. His arrogance was gone. Now he dared not even lift his head. He was afraid of drawing that man's attention. Though he had doubts before, he was sure now that the man sitting there was a stronger martial artist than Third Lord Bai. Now we can only wait to see the attitude of the Bai family. The most powerful martial artist in the Bai family is Bai Pingyun's grandfather, and the second is Third Lord Bai. In this case, even if Bai Pingyun's grandfather comes here personally, he can't suppress this guy. He is still so young. Who is he? I'm afraid only Gai Yulong can defeat him. Now we can only wait for help. Tan Ming's head hurt, and he knew he could only pray now. Soon after, the clamor of the crowd stopped. The whole room fell into silence again. 20 seconds passed. Taking a deep breath, Bai Feng turned his head and looked at Zhang Han, disregarding the cold sweat on his forehead. After making an obeisance, he said respectfully, "Nice to meet you, young hero. No matter what caused the current situation, it doesn't matter who is right or wrong, and we can't talk with you equally, so." Bai Feng took back his hands, straightened his body, and said seriously, "I will report this to Patriarch Bai frankly. At that time, the Bai family will ask you for an explanation." The Bai family was deeply rooted in Ice City and had a complex relationship with various forces. As long as Patriarch Bai started to take action, all the strong martial artists in Ice City would help him one after another. Unfortunately, he didn't have a specific concept about what a strong martial artist was. Upon hearing Bai Feng's words, everyone else in the room shivered in fear. This means that the Bai family won't forgive him. It's a pity that he encountered the wrong person. When Bai Feng was about to turn around and leave in silence with Bai Pinyin and the other followers, Zhang Han picked up a glass of red wine from the tea table. He shook the glass slightly and said, "My explanation? Let Patriarch Bai come here." There seemed to be a trace of impatience in his flat tone. Hearing Zhang Han's words, all the Bai family members in the room blushed in anger. "You!" Bai Pinyin clenched his fist and teeth while glaring at Zhang Han. Though he dared not say anything for the moment, he was roaring in his mind. "Let's wait for my brother Yulong. When he arrives, will you still be as calm as now?" "Okay." Bai Feng nodded and took a look at Zhang Han. Then he turned around and took out his mobile phone to send a message. Many people clearly saw that his fingers were shaking while typing. He was not afraid, but angry. When was the Bai family looked down upon like this? Zhang Han looked at him indifferently and drank all the red wine in the glass. The development of things was just as Zhang Han had expected. But he hadn't expected that he would kill someone so early, and he knew that many forces, even the local National Security Agency and the official department, would soon find him. Zhang Han would not be able to hide his identity at that time, and perhaps Gai Yulong, the young talent, would not come to meet him. Fortunately, Bai Pinyin contacted Gai Yulong more quickly than Zhang Han had expected. Zhang Han always did things as he liked, and the chaos that he caused today helped him to meet Gai Yulong before he was recognized. After the incident, more people would know that Fu Hongshan, Chen Man, and Xiao Hui had such a friend. Just when everyone was silent, bang! The door of the room was pushed open again. Jiang Tongtong's eldest brother, Patriarch Jiang, Jiang Tongtong's parents, and several senior members of the Jiang family came in together. Just after escaping from the room, Jiang Tongtong's eldest brother called her but didn't get through. Then he called someone he knew in the room and was told what had happened. He was so afraid that he hurriedly contacted the key members of the Jiang family. After hearing about Bai Pinyun's incident, the Jiang family was shocked, and Patriarch Jiang rushed to the club with many core family members. But the scene in the room seemed different from what they had imagined. Bai Feng, Patriarch Jiang was slightly stunned while looking around. He found that most of the young men kneeling were from upper-class families in Ice City. Suddenly, he saw the old man lying on the ground, not breathing. Who is that? Is he Third Lord Bai? What happened to him? Isn't he a martial arts grandmaster? What's going on? He stabbed the hornet's nest. Patriarch Jiang and all the people behind him were stiff. They were now in the room and couldn't turn around and escape from this place like Jiang Tongtong's eldest brother had done. More importantly, this was Jiang Tongtong's birthday party. They felt a headache. Though Patriarch Jiang was angry, he could do nothing now. He had no choice but to take his men forward. My parents are coming. Jiang Tongtong's face slightly changed, but she failed to stand up because of her soft legs. This, Brother Han, does it matter? Fu Hongshan saw Jiang Tongtong's helplessness and asked Zhang Han worriedly, "Don't worry." Zhang Han chuckled. They didn't know Zhang Han's strength and his amazing status at all. Even if someone recognized Zhang Han and called out the name Zhang Han Yang, there wouldn't be any shock in this room. Only 2 or 3 martial artists present were familiar with this name, which belonged to fierce men equal in strength with North Tiger Gai Xingkong, brother Bai Feng. Patriarch Jiang took the lead to come up to Bai Feng and greet him. Then he turned his gaze to Third Lord Bai, who was lying on the ground. It seems that Third Lord Bai is dead. He was nervous, quite nervous. At this time, Bai Feng was in a bad mood. When he saw Patriarch Jiang, he just replied coldly, "Congratulations, Patriarch Jiang, the friend of Jiang Tongtong's boyfriend is a hero." All the Jiang family members changed their facial expressions in fear. They knew that Bai Feng was blaming the Jiang family. Patriarch Jiang looked at Jiang Tongtong and Fu Hongshan, who were sitting calmly on the sofa. He walked toward them with a darkened face. "You two, come out here." He scolded them. Jiang Tongtong's father was so embarrassed and frightened that he shouted, "You bastard! I." Jiang Tongtong almost burst out crying. At this time, Zhao Feng moved to block Patriarch Jiang. He frowned slightly, pointed to the direction of those who were kneeling on the ground, and then to the side and the door. "You can choose to kneel there," Zhao Feng said. "You can stand silently aside. Or you'd better get out as soon as possible." "Are you talking to me?" Patriarch Jiang got annoyed. "Perhaps you want to be treated like him?" Zhang Han added casually and pointed at Bai Zhenhong's body. Hiss. All the pupils of the Jiang family members shrank. Third Lord Bai is dead. Are these guys thugs? Patriarch Jiang quickly made up his mind and took the lead to step forward. All the members of the Jiang family followed Zhao Feng's orders and stood quietly by. Just after they stopped, bang! The door of the room was pushed open again. The 2 waiters outside the room didn't know what had happened inside, and they were still focusing on their work. Tenkaran, Tenming's brother. He comes here with his men. But he is just equal in influence with Bai Feng, and I'm afraid he can't defeat that man. When everyone thought what had shocked them just now would happen again, they were surprised to see Tenkaran's calm face. However, after seeing the scene on the right side of the room, Tenkaran failed to control his twitching eyelids. He walked forward with 3 men, took a glance at Bai Pingyun, Bai Feng, and Bai Zhenhong lying on the ground, traded a look with Tenming, and then turned his gaze to Zhang Han. He made an obeisance and said politely, "Sir, Tenming didn't offend you before, so I wonder if you could forgive him. We'll give you a formal explanation when we get back." On the way over here, he had received several messages from Tenming that surprised him. Third Lord Bai is dead. This news will shock the whole Bai family. In Tenming's eyes, the young man who dared to kill Third Lord Bai was definitely not ordinary. Therefore, he didn't want to get involved in it. As for the explanation, it depends on whether this fight is won by the Bai family or the mysterious young man. If the Bai family succeeds, the young man will be killed. But if the young man succeeds in suppressing the Bai family, it means that he is also able to defeat our Ten family. After hearing this, Zhang Han pondered for a second, then looked at Tenming and said calmly, "He spoke rudely to me, so I'll make him kneel until the end of the matter." "Okay." Tenkaran nodded without hesitation, and then walked toward the Jiang family. Hearing this, Tenming, who was the party concerned, was relieved. He completely forgot his anger and other emotions caused by being forced to kneel, which was smashed by the death of Third Lord Bai. Seeing this scene, many people present knew that the Ten family had been subdued. They didn't want to get involved in this. From this point, they realized that the man sitting on the sofa. When many people were thinking about it, bang! Suddenly, the door was kicked open. The faces of several people in front of the main door changed. Here came the best part of the show. The Bai family members didn't come in person, but their attack had arrived. As one of the top families in Ice City, they had a great influence in this area. Whoosh! Under the gaze of the crowd, a group of armed police rushed in. More than 20 guns were aimed at the sofa on the right. Jiang Tongdong and Zhang Han's friends were all shocked. The group of well-trained police rushed at Zhang Han. They were led by the local police chief. "Squat down, hands on your head." The police chief roared. Swish! Chen Man and Xiaohui were scared. They wanted to get up and squat down, but they failed to control their soft bodies, which forced them to sit down again. The police have arrived, and it will come to an end. Wu Ying slowly shook her head. Private resentment might have room to turn around, but the emergence of the official sector represented absolute authority. No one in this country dared to fight against the state machine. Phew. Bai Jing sighed in relief. She just wanted it to end as soon as possible. Even all the people around thought so. However, before these policemen could approach Zhang Han's sofa, that brush-cut man in front of the tea table stepped forward, and then took out a black-covered booklet from his pocket. Some people with good eyesight found that there was a symbol like a wolf's head on the cover. This raised the eyebrows of the police chief, who wanted to apprehend Zhang Han. He stopped his men and took over the booklet. His facial expression suddenly froze. After 2 seconds of silence, he took a deep breath and said, "You are in Ice City, and what you did." Once again, Zhang Han's calm voice rang through the room. "Step back." Swish, swish, swish. All eyes were focused on the side of the sofa. Another booklet was in the mysterious man's right hand, which was thrown forward by him and landed in the police chief's hand. When he saw the mark of authority, his face changed. Then he slowly opened the booklet. Hiss. His pupils shrank and his face went stiff, even his hand holding the booklet trembled slightly. "General?" He knew that he could not get involved in this matter, so he slowly closed the booklet and respectfully handed it back to Zhang Han with a salute. "I'm Fang Quan, nice to see you. Step back." Zhang Han waved his hand under everyone's gaze. "Yes." Fang Quan nodded, and then led his men to the other side of the room. Anyway, they had to stay here to control the situation. Upon seeing this, the crowd fell into silence. All the Jiang family members had a lingering fear. Fortunately, they stood there obediently just now, or the consequences would be unimaginable. He is not just a hero, he is a tyrant. Even Bai Feng, Bai Pingyun, and Bai Jing got nervous. The development of things seemed to be different from what they had expected. But you can't imagine how influential we Bai family is. Bai Feng looked at Zhang Han with an eagerness to fight him. He knew that there was still a group of people that hadn't arrived yet. Bang! Just as Bai Feng expected. The door was opened once again. There was only one person there. It was Zihu in a black suit, and he looked calm. As the director of the Ice City National Security Agency, he was at the Grand Master late stage. When he entered the room and was about to say something, he saw something white rushing at him like lightning. A hidden weapon. Zihui was shocked and tried to block the fast lightning, but he soon found out that the light wasn't attacking him at all. Okay. False alarm. Just show me your tricks, you outsider. Zihui took a glance at Zhang Han and stopped the white item with one hand. Then he looked down at it. It was a token he was familiar with. He saw the name on it. Zoom. He felt as if his brain had been hit hard by a sledgehammer. Zihui was now in a daze. He couldn't even keep his balance. Damn it, it's him. Chapter 540, The Respectful Gai Long. Zhang Han Yang. The name seemed to be magical, and Zhu Hui's face changed again and again because of it. Finally, he stopped with a frightened look. Though the martial arts world of the Northeast was still unfamiliar with Zhang Han Yang, as the director of the National Security Agency's branch in H Province, Zihui had heard about him numerous times. He knew how this man suppressed the whole Hong Kong martial arts world within several months. This man had killed He Kengshan, destroyed the Li family, defeated several talents from the world lit, and was praised by Wang as being someone that no one under the divine realm could defeat. Damn it, merciless Zhang of Hong Kong, why is he here? Damn it, what can I do? He is merciless Zhang, what if he kills me for offending him? Hiss. Zhui got more and more nervous. He knew that even the martial artists at the Grandmaster late stage couldn't defeat merciless Zhang, let alone him, who had just advanced into the Grandmaster late stage. What can I do? Zhui was stunned. Many people around were astonished. What is he reading? Does he have an amazing identity? Even the director is thinking about it. The Jiang family, the Tan family, Bai Jing, Bai Pingyuan, almost everyone's eyes were focused on Zhui. 10 seconds passed. Zhui moved. He walked toward Zhang Han's sofa. The director is moving. Is he going to deal with that man? Bai Pingyuan's eyes were fixed on Zhui. Many people could not help holding their breath. Because in their opinion, Zhui, the director of the National Security Agency of H Province, was about to start. However, what happened next made these prepared people's mouths gape open, and their eyes almost popped out of their heads. Zhui was walking faster and faster. Finally, he rushed by the kneeling crowd and past all the rich second-generation kids of top families including Tan Ming, Bai Pingyuan, and Bai Feng, without even sparing a glance at them. He stopped in front of the tea table. Zhui made an obeisance to Zhang Han and then said respectfully, "Nice to meet you, Director Zhang. I'm Zhui, the director of the National Security Agency of H Province." Who is he? Those who were just guessing Zhang Han's identity felt as if their necks were pinched, and they could not even blink their eyes. What did he say? He knows this young man. He made an obeisance to that man? Wu Ying couldn't help stepping back in fear and covering her mouth with one hand, which was wide open. Director? Bai Jing was astonished at the title. As a director, Zhui was the head of a provincial national security agency. He was even more influential than Patriarch Bai because of his title and status. Bai Jing had never expected that young man to be another director. However excellent Bai Jing's brother was, the gap between him and the director was like a star in the sun. They couldn't be compared at all. Bai Pingyuan also knew it, so he turned pale after hearing Zhui's words. As Bai Pingyuan's senior, Bai Feng's face also changed. Director Zhang? Who is Director Zhang? They are both directors, but Zhui treated him so courteously and even flattered him. Why, does this young man have an amazing supporter, or? All of a sudden, Bai Feng came up with an idea that made him afraid. Perhaps he is much more powerful than Zhui. Is that possible? I hope not. Bai Feng knew that the incident today would definitely be dealt with. If that young man was really powerful in his own strength, he and his men would be in danger. Wait, we still have Gai Yulong. Bai Feng's eyes lit up as he put his last bet on Gai Yulong. As for Wei Zedong, who was kneeling aside, at this time, he was frightened and his face was pale. He dared not imagine the identity of Zhang Han, who had suppressed so many local forces with it. It's me who caused this, and if they are going to punish me, the whole Wei family will suffer a lot along with me. He couldn't help shivering. Beside him stood Tan Ming, who dared not say anything now. After comparing himself with Wei Zedong and Bai Pingyuan, Tan Ming found himself so lucky. Was he lucky? Perhaps. Under everyone's astonished gaze, Zhang Han looked at Zhui and nodded at him without standing up. Then he waved his hand to call back the director token of Hong Kong National Security Agency, and then put it into his space ring. Well, Director Zhang. Zhui took a glance at Bai Feng. After thinking about it, he made up his mind and said, "Excuse me, but I wonder how they offended you. Anyway, it's their fault that they didn't recognize you. I wonder, for my sake, could Director Zhang negotiate with them instead of resorting to using force?" After saying this, Zhui carefully looked at Zhang Han's expression. Director Zhang really nodded his head. Wow! Zhui was overjoyed, for he succeeded in persuading Zhang Han. Now listen to me. Zhang Han checked the time and said, "It's 9 in the evening. I've taken the time today to get together with my old friends. But these people kept bothering me again and again. Child Y wanted to beat my men, right? Zhang Han helped himself to another glass of red wine. Wai Zedong's face turned pale for a moment, and he sat on the ground in fright. Grandmasters should not be humiliated, let alone Director Zhang. Wai Zedong should be punished. Zihua said word by word. His idea was to calm Director Zhang down at the lowest cost possible. Since he has destroyed the Li family, what else can't he do? I must protect all these people in the room from being hurt by Director Zhang. Then he called for all these men. Zhang Han smiled as if he was satisfied with Zihua's attitude. Before Zhang Han could finish, Zihua replied seriously, I'll punish them severely. Clatter. Zihua's words changed everyone's faces, including the elders of all those young generation kids from top families. I also heard that my old friend. He patted Fu Hongshan's shoulder while looking at Zihua. The Jiang family looked down on him. They should be killed. Zihua frowned and replied in a chilling tone. Hiss. Patriarch Jiang and the other family members were almost scared to death. Damn it, you are going to punish them, for they made this trouble. So why do you want to kill us? We didn't offend you at all. The Jiang family was in confusion. At the same time, they were desperate. Is he trying to warn other families by punishing us, or does he want us to be the shield, because we are the weakest? Is he really going to kill us? Patriarch Jiang's body was so soft that he almost fell to the ground. In fact, Zihua said all those words without careful consideration. Zhang Han was surprised by him but soon forgot it. Zhang Han didn't want to speak anymore, since what he had said was enough for Fu Hongshan to suppress all his rivals. Then Zhang Han took a glance at Bai Pingyuan and said, I heard that Gai Yulong, the talented one of the young generations of the Gai family in northeast China will come here. Now you have 20 minutes, and if he doesn't appear in the room, you can only ask your patriarch to take you back. Then Zhang Han took a sip of the red wine. Hearing Zhang Han's words, Zihua looked at him in confusion. What's this? Is Gai Yulong his target? He is so powerful that Gai Yulong can't be equal in strength or status with him. Though Gai Yulong is a talented martial artist, anyone of Shi Fenwu, Yilong Yuan, Emperor King, and Mugs could defeat Gai Yulong easily, let alone merciless Zhang. More than a month ago, many people in the martial arts world in China have known Zhang Han Yang's name. Not long ago, a saying was used to praise the most representative talents nowadays, talented Emperor King in the north, and merciless Zhang Han Yang in the south. A few days ago, Zhang Han Yang defeated many talents from the worldlet, and his fame had already surpassed Emperor King in many people's eyes. He is such an amazing master. Can Gai Yulong defeat him? I'm afraid that only his grandfather, Gai Xingkong, is equal in strength with Zhang Han Yang. At this moment, Zihua suddenly felt that it was not as simple as he imagined. He took a glance at Bai Pingyuan. No matter how calm Bai Pingyuan used to be, he was so nervous now. Director Zhang. From Zihua's attitude, Bai Feng also felt the seriousness of the matter. After thinking about the title for a while, a name suddenly appeared in his mind. His heartbeat seemed to have skipped 2 beats. Is he merciless Zhang? He was almost frightened to death. When Zihua was speaking, he kept taking deep breaths and managed to calm himself down slightly. Then he astonished everyone present with his words. Our Bai family is willing to be punished. Director Zhang, please forgive us. We are sure to give you a satisfactory answer. For a moment, the crowd fell into silence again, but everyone's mind was not peaceful. Is the Bai family admitting defeat? Who is that man? I can't believe it. How amazing he is that he suppressed half of the top families in Ice City by himself. Many people's faces changed in fear. Once again, they felt like they were being dominated. The highly respected Wai Zedong was forced to kneel there. His brother was forced to kneel there too. Then the arrival of so many core members of top families couldn't help them. Many of them dared not to say anything, and Bai Feng even took the lead to ask him for mercy. My gosh, am I dreaming? One after another, they kept feeling a sense of suffocation. Zhang Han totally ignored Bai Feng's words. He was not interested in the apology of top families at all, and he didn't want to say anything to them. He was waiting for Gai Yulong, otherwise he would leave the room immediately. As for the reason, Xian and Meng Meng were waiting for his bedtime stories at home. Zhang Han wanted to meet Gai Xingkong rather than Gai Yulong, but his time was limited. No one dared to say anything since Zhang Han was silent. Zihui knew that he couldn't say anything more, he could do nothing but wait in silence. As a result, the whole room fell into a dead silence again. Among them, the most frightened ones were Jiang Tongdong, Fu Hongshan, Shen Man, and Zixiao Hui, in addition to Bai Pinyin and his fellows, who were trapped in the center of the vortex. But they didn't know what to say at all. Everyone in the room was staring at each other. What else could they say? This kind of dead atmosphere made them feel a bit depressed. At the same time, many people had an idea in mind. What if Gai Yulong comes here? Can he turn this crisis around? While many people were thinking about it, the door of the room was slowly pushed open. When so many people came here before, the two gatekeepers had already escaped. Swish. The moment the door opened, everyone turned their gaze toward it. A young man came in. The heart of Bai Pinyin trembled. Brother Yulong, it's Gai Yulong. He's come here alone. He is still wearing a transitional long cyan gown. That sword is still hanging at his waist. He is that kind of legendary hero who travels around the world with his sword. He is Gai Yulong, the young talent who is famous in northeast China. However, why is his expression respectful? Under everyone's gaze, Gai Yulong walked up to Zhang Han, and then stopped when he was 5 meters away from the tea table. He bowed to Zhang Han. I'm Gai Yulong, and it's my pleasure to meet you, Grandmaster Zhang. He's finally come. Zhang Han was cheered up and straightened his body. Hearing Gai Yulong's words, Zhang Han smiled and asked, You know who I am? Of course, Gai Yulong replied. There are lots of legends about Grandmaster Zhang in the martial arts circle, but most of us never got a chance to meet you. In my eyes, you are even more powerful than what the legends said. As North Tiger Gai Xingkong's grandson, Gai Yulong had mastered a special cultivation method, which helped him a lot. He was able to evaluate a martial artist's strength through sensing his or her chi. Therefore, he looked at Zhang Han carefully when he entered the room. He felt the shocking pressure and chi released by Zhang Han. Before Zhang Han could reply, Gai Yulong added, Grandmaster Zhang, we all regard you as a good example even though you are called Merciless Zhang. We know that you did all those things for your own reasons and all those martial artists you killed deserved it. You are above board, so I admire you. And I felt so excited when I heard that you defeated all those talents from the world lit. How I wish that I can advance to your level one day. I'm here not to help anyone, for I totally agree with your principle of doing things, Grandmaster Zhang. Therefore, I'm here just to meet you. Swish, swish, swish. Gai Yulong's words shocked all the people present. More than 90% of them were surprised by Gai Yulong's attitude. Only a small number of them were so scared that they sweat. Grandmaster Zhang, Director Zhang, and Merciless Zhang, who defeated all those talents. They finally remembered the name, Zhang Han Yang. Damn it, why did he come to Ice City? He is now sitting in front of us. My gosh, no wonder he could defeat all the top families in Ice City. Even a few people, such as Bai Pinyin and Tan Ming, who knew Zhang Han Yang's name, were depressed. They didn't expect to be on the opposite side of him. Now it seemed that they were really asking to die just now. As for Zhang Han, he looked at Gai Yulong and raised his eyebrows slightly. Since Gai Yulong was so respectful, he couldn't beat the young man. Zhang Han liked to do things at will, and he would not feel happy if he killed Gai Yulong under such circumstances. Zhang Han was silent for 5 seconds. Then he said slowly, You are so polite. Phew. Gai Yulong's heart, which was about to jump into his throat, calmed down slightly. He had sensed Zhang Han's intention to kill him. Hearing Zhang Han's words, Gai Yulong hurriedly made an obeisance and said, I'm just stating the facts. I hate those talents from the world lit for some reasons, and I admire you so much after learning that you defeated all of them. Even my grandfather thinks highly of you. Don't admire me. Zhang Han sighed silently and checked the time, knowing that there was no time for him to do anything. So he said, I'm in a good mood today. I don't care about these things. Gai Yulong, tell your grandfather. Although I'm magnanimous, I can't let him go since I have known something, and he will always be a thorn in my heart. Go back and tell him that if I don't see him in the relics, I'll go to visit the Gai family later, and I'm not sure what will happen at that time. Zhang Han stood up. Gai Yulong's eyes narrowed. Is there something I don't know? While thinking about it, he replied, sure, I'll tell my grandfather. Zhang Han ignored him and turned his gaze to Fu Hongshan. Would you like to see me off? Ah, yes. Fu Hongshan was choked by saliva and coughed uncontrollably. Zhang Han took the lead to leave the room, followed by his friends including Fu Hongshan and Jiang Tongdong. After they left, Bai Pingyuan went up to Gai Yulong with a pale face. Brother Long, I'm sorry to have caused you so much trouble. Never mind, Grandmaster Zhang's target is me. Gai Yulong forced a smile, turned around to look at the others in the room, and then shook his head. I'm sorry to surprise you, and luckily, you're safe. If Grandmaster Zhang had been really offended, he would have killed all of us. You are right. Zihui took a breath in relief and then said with lingering fear, I was almost scared to death just now. It seemed that he could kill me at any moment. Yulong, you'd better go back home and tell your grandfather about it, and I'm afraid that he has something to do with it. Besides, the relic is about to open and more martial artists will come to Ice City. You young masters must behave yourself. I won't forgive you the next time. Zihui's face turned serious. He was actually scolding these young men. Then he thought of something and added, by the way, there is one thing that you must keep in mind. Director Zhang loves his wife and daughter, and everyone in Hong Kong knows that they would rather provoke him than his family. Though you offended Director Zhang just now, he spared your life, right? But if you offend his wife or daughter, he will kill you without hesitation. Keep it in mind. And I can't save you if you still make mistakes.